We're good? Tina? Great.
USB behind here, sure.
I call to order this regular College Township Council meeting, Thursday, June 1st, 2023. Will all who are able please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, before we get started, just an announcement. Council did just meet previously to this meeting in an executive session to discuss a personnel matter. First item on our agenda is public open discussion. Is anyone here have something that's not already on the agenda? Mr. Takak, Representative Takak.
Yeah.
Please state your name.
Some people might be trying to forget. Paul Takak, College Township, proud resident of College Township. I thank you for giving me just a minute. It's so nice to be back in this room where I spent so much productive time, especially on an auspicious occasion, as it were, Carla's last meeting, as I understand it. So I wanted to be here, and for those of you who may not know the story, I wanted to fill you in a little bit on this. But Carla and I, our circles had changed, but I really got to know Carla when we ran together in 2019. And that was the election where Carla, myself, and Rich were elected to council. And I've often said that, you know, it's one thing to win, or to run, but it's a whole other thing to win. And I'm finding that out in spades. You know, this may come as a surprise to some and maybe not a surprise to others, but I didn't really know what I was doing, right? I mean, I don't know if anybody does when they first get into it. But I've always said that I was so very lucky to be elected a member of this council, with this staff, with these residents, because it was such an amazing experience. And I had the really good fortune to sit right next to Carla my first year and sit with a really amazing council. And I had the opportunity. I had the opportunity to sit and watch and learn. And I have to say, Carla, you're an amazing role model for me as a new person. I mean, for example, you're always willing to ask questions that maybe nobody was either open to asking or had maybe thought of. You were always thinking outside of the box, and you were always thinking about the people, the residents, and that was a constant. Everything that we ever did, that was your benchmark, was how is it going to affect the people in our township. And it was really inspiring to watch that and to see you navigate that, particularly in a room full of very strong-minded people. And you worked really, really hard. And, sorry, I mean, it's, there's so many examples, right? I mean, the Sustainability Committee, the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan, the parks, your willingness to step up when we needed folks to show up for things. You always did that. And College Township and the Center Region is better for your service. So, and it will be true for years to come. You can't be replaced, but there are great people in this township, and there always have been. And we just, as a resident, as a friend, I want to thank you. And I want to recognize you for your service. And one way that I can do that is through a legislative acknowledgement.
Oh, wow.
And it reads, to Carla Stilson, in recognition of your outstanding achievements as a public servant, which bring distinction to you, your community, and your state. Your accomplishments during your time on College Township Council are especially noteworthy due to your commitment to serving your community for over 10 years. You are a source of great pride and inspiration, and I would like to take this opportunity on behalf of the House of Representatives to honor you with this citation. Congratulations.
Oh, wow. You don't dare. Photo op, photo op. And, yeah.
We're so lucky.
Okay, let me take a picture.
I don't even know how to do this.
You stand here and you get your picture taken. I'm learning. That's one of the things that I can teach you. Yeah. Thank you.
Right? Award winning.
Good
Oh,
one. Good one.
wow.
Wow, okay, thank you. I was just so happy to see you here for whatever reason you were here for. I was gonna give you a hug anyway. Wow, thank you. Okay, I don't know how to move on, just give me a breath. Sue Smith, open discussion.
Hi, I wanted to first say thank you to the township for the great cooperative venture we had getting the trees planted on Pike Street. I'm really pleased with how they're doing and that you're taking good care of them. I'm hoping that we'll have 2 more, because we were to have 11. 2 of them went to Kissinger Meadow because they wouldn't fit where they were going to be planted. So we'll keep that in mind and maybe we can find 2 more for 2 more spaces. But it was a very great privilege working with the township and having it be such a good fit. I'm sorry my computer goes on and off. I have Comcast and for heaven knows why. If I'm blanking going, I'm really still here. Also, I wanted to make sure that you know that the Village Green concerts start tomorrow. Right. First off is J.C. Thompson, who is a descendant of John I. Thompson, who built the granary. So he's a fine musician, and it's not going to be raining, so it'll be a good time. And then the following Saturday is the Strawberry Festival. So please plan to join us. You can find out more details on our website, www.lamontvillage.org. There's lots of information there. So I just wanted a chance to say thank you, and please come to our events. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. So we have scouts in the room today for those on CNET, and I think it's, first of all, I want to respond to Representative Takak and say everything that you said about me could be said about you. 100%, that I think we'd all agree that that's really how we felt about your service on our township, though it was short. It's really exciting that you're able to serve in a larger capacity, but also Sue Smith, who serves day in and day out, and doesn't have an official title and isn't in an elected position. But Sue serves the residents of Lamont and actually all of College Township, and even further than that, because she offers her community up and opens it with welcoming events and works really hard to do all that. So.
I have to tell you that I get phone calls from people who want to pay their Lamont water bill, and they told me, oh, I should. They know it's not the government, it's just a water, and so it's fine. A lot of people call me the mayor, but I'd rather be the queen.
Queen, I'll put that in the
So
notes.
that's Queen Smith, Representative Takak, and
That's right.
final day of council members.
Well, we're done
Carla
here.
Stolzen.
Can't top that.
So anybody else with open discussion? Okay, seeing none. That's actually a really nice trifecta there, so I appreciate that. We have new agenda items. There is one new agenda item. It's NB3 revisions to DCNR grant estimate and funding commitment. Would somebody make a motion to add that to the agenda?
Move to add MB3 to the agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. Seeing none, NB3 is added. All right, which brings us to special presentation SP1. We have Cub Scouts Pack 67, the trash event, which is a good hook. I like that. Come to the lectern, say your name and Tell us what's going on.
Well, hello, good evening. Thank you for having us here. Thanks for hosting us. My name is Rebecca Kirby, and I am a member of the PAC committee, which is the administrative side of how PAC 67 operates. And so I am joined this evening by a few of our scouts in PAC 67, and you can stand up if you like. Come on up. And stand right here. Okay, so the scouts I'm joined with, who are joining me tonight, this is Finn, Felicity, and Amelia. And we have about 40 scouts in our pack, and I don't know how to, yes, okay, good, thank you.
Point at me when you're ready.
Just
at
point?
that.
Oh,
point at me.
perfect. Okay, so essentially we have about 40 Cub Scouts in our pack, and we meet at the United Methodist Church in Hauserville. Yes, we are PAC 67, that's right. No, just 40. You look that way, I'll look this way, okay. So just overall, Cub Scouting, just as a refresh, is the program in the Boy Scouts whose overall mission is to help young people build character, learn citizenship, and develop personal fitness and leadership. And as you can see from the scouts standing here, membership requirements are boys and girls, kindergarten through 5th grade, or ages 6 through 10. And so right now we are a day and a half away from the end of the school year. So we have, yep, we're gonna talk about that. Oh, 2 days. Okay, we'll round it up, 2 days. We have a Lion Scout who just had an advancement. He's usually a yellow neckerchief in kindergarten, has now advanced to being a tiger with his orange neckerchief. Way to go, Finn. And then the 2 scouts that we have here, they just finished being wolves in 2nd grade and are now bears in 3rd grade. So we just had our advancement ceremony. Thank you. Go ahead and turn that back so you're, yep, so you could see the bear. I know that was really good. Okay, that's all right. Okay, and so just kind of an overview. If you remember, if anybody was Scouts or participated with Scouts in some way, you will remember, Okay, thank you. We have a few things that guide how we do the program, and one is the Scout Oath. And it encompasses most of what a Scout, youth or adult, should do. It helps Cub Scouts develop a sense of spiritual awareness, loyalty, unselfishness, self-discipline, and service to others. And if the Scouts with me today will raise your right hand to give the Scout sign, go ahead, raise it up. And we're going to say together, the council can see it. Oh, I was told to turn this way.
There we go. Can you
We're going to recite the Scout Oath.
I'll hold it.
You will hold it for me? Thank you. Are you ready, Scouts? Okay, run this way. Good job. Thank you. Very helpful. Okay. On my honor,
I will do my best to do my duty
to God and my country,
to obey
the Scout law, to help other people at all times, to keep myself
physically strong,
mentally awake, and morally straight. And we live that out by following the Scout law. We're going to turn that around.
Okay,
Thank
guys,
you,
I
Stan. Okay, go ahead.
The Scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, friendly, brave, clean, and reverent.
Whoa.
Right. Felicity, can you tell the council what the Cub Scout motto is?
Do your best.
Are you Felicity? Okay.
I just wanted to shout out.
Please to do your best. And Felicity, can you point to your rank that you have over here with the safety pin on your uniform? So I was telling everybody that you all had recently advanced to the next rank. Why does the PAC, do you know why the PAC, Felicity's going to speak, do you know why the PAC, our tradition is to put your rank on upside down when you have earned it? Yes.
Because you have to do a good deed and then you turn it over.
That's right. So it reminds the scout to actually carry that out, and then what you see is kind of them in their transition right now, because they're wearing some of their old rank, they just got at the end of May, with some of their new things that they're doing too, and moving forward with that.
I can give you hat and a new shirt.
Okay, we'll talk about that in a minute.
And for those of you who don't know, this is Saint Kirby.
No, what?
What's your last name?
Kirby,
Kirby.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
Saint Kirby. I've now dubbed you.
You are very, very kind. Okay.
She had approval from the Queen.
This day is very eventful, this evening. Okay, turn around.
They've been here a while.
You can go on to the next one. That was just kind of touching on how we're organized.
She's a pretty good judge and she's fun.
Thank you, honey. Thank you. So the Scouts are organized, like as you can see on the screen. We meet as a pack once a month, and that's all of the age groups and all of the rank. And then in their den meetings, 2 to 3 times per month, so that they can complete their requirements and their adventures. And then I think, yes, I see my bears are wearing their belt. Can you point to the belt? No, don't show me, show them. They earn for each time that they complete an adventure or a new skill, they earn a belt loop, and then they can wear that on their belts. Thank you. And so the dens, as you can see, and as we have been talking about, you have your lions, your tigers, your wolves, your bears, your Weeblos. Eddie Scouts here, what does Weeblos stand for when you're in 4th grade? Go ahead.
We'll be loyal scouts.
Are you Felicity today? Let her talk, please. Go ahead, Felicity. Yeah, you can tell them, what does Weeblos mean? That's right, we'll be loyal scouts. And then the last is Arrow of Light before you cross over into a Scouts BSA troop, which you can see our Cub Scout program has both boys and girls, but when you go to the troop level, the National Council has decided, and once based on research actually, to keep the troops separate with their gender. So you might have girls troops and boys troops come to talk. Okay, so at this point, Scouts, I'm gonna point to you, well, I'll just say your name, and you tell me what you like the most and learned the most about the rank you just completed. So, Finn, it's the first one, yeah. So, Amelia, why don't you start? What do you like, or what did you learn?
What I liked learning how to play games and work together. What I like about scouting is you can.
Yep, just say nicely. What did you like about scouting?
What I liked about scouts was that you could make friends.
That's right, making friends. And then,
I learned about the 6 essentials.
and what's the 6 essentials?
Water, first aid kit, flashlight,
Trail and sun protection.
and
And hat, yeah, that's sun protection. Okay, so coming to the part where we talk about how we kind of go together. And so just looking over the vision, the mission, and the goals of the township, it's very easy to see how PAC 67's goals and missions also align with that. Some of the things here that really, I think was really good that the Scouts were able to see on display: participatory citizenship, so being a good leader, being a citizen that steps up and takes a leadership role, and then even moves to our state government. I mean, that is something I didn't plan, and all of that was on display, so thank you, everyone.
Your representative is here to help.
I'm just glad I don't have to follow them.
So the last point on this slide, and one of the leading reasons why we're here, is to talk a little bit about what we did for the township, and that's with Scouts Trash the Trash Day. And so, go ahead and move to the next slide. I will, yeah, in just a minute. So here's a picture of the Scouts. And Scouts Trash the Trash Day, it's an international Messengers of Peace project for scouts around the world, where each scout is challenged to bring a friend or a family member along and pick up at least 2.2 pounds of trash each on the first Saturday in May. And so essentially what you need to do is you have to register your pack or your unit, because troops and crews also do this and around the world. And you find a safe location to pick up trash. You bring bags and gloves, and essentially what we've done for the past 3 years is that we clean up the portion in the back of the Hills Plaza. So it's very safe for, our kindergarten through 5th grade, and there's a lot of things that can be discarded. And so that's just one way that they've really been able to kind of make a dent in things that you can visibly see. You can see the next one. So they really enjoy, and then the community came out. Yep, you can see yourself. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah,
and then the community came out and donated some snacks and different things. At this point, instead of looking for yourself, yep, Amelia, go ahead and you can tell the council why you think it's important to participate in Scouts Trash the Trash Day.
Well, I like to do it because it helps the environment and saves animals and plants.
Okay, for
Why trash to trash is important is because it helps the environment.
That's right. And then Finn, this is what you said.
It's good because we make the environment better.
That's right. And then the Scouts also get a Scouts Trash the Trash Day patch. Can you use walking feet and walk right up here and hand that patch over so then the council members can pass it around and they can see. Thank you.
That's awesome.
And so just some facts before we kind of close out our presentation this evening. Worldwide, 1,942 bags were filled. 368 groups participated. 2,326 individuals participated, and there were 6,868 hours worldwide that went into Scouts Trash the Trash Day. So it's just a really amazing event that we're able to have that action. Okay, we're getting there.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, so. Okay, let's get back in your line. Get back in your line and look this way towards the council. Okay, so we thank you for having us. We are going to close with something that is somewhat of a Cub Scout specialty. We like to have fun, and we're at the age where we like to tell jokes. And fair warning, some jokes have been made up from themselves. But before we get to the jokes to close out, I want to give a special thank you to Rachel Avila. She is our advancement chair who facilitated this presentation and this opportunity. And we do hope to be asked back because we have a program filled of wonderful services projects that we'd love to update the council on throughout the year. So thank you very much. Thank you, Rachel. Okay, Amelia, go ahead. Nice and clear when it's your turn to tell your joke.
What do you call a fake noodle? An impasta.
She told me that one. I
How's
knew
it
it.
going?
I knew
When you're not following. Got it. We got it.
Then you can sit down after you've told your joke.
She nailed it.
Sequel
Ooh, in their scale pockets. No.
in a riverbank.
There you go.
Why are dinosaurs so stinky? Because they're extinct.
Okay, that was really good. Well, thank you so much. I heard it announced up here that that may be the best special presentation we've ever had, at least in my decade here on council.
26 years.
26 years over there. So, and something tells me that the chair that will take my place when I'm gone will have no problem inviting you back.
Very nice.
Very good.
I might have a little
great.
bias, so.
All right, well, thank you so much. Does anyone have questions for the Scouts? Okay. All right, great. That's a wonderful special presentation, and thank you for all of the work you have been doing cleaning up for the environment. So, all right, which brings us to reports, manager's update.
Yeah, actually, I have nothing to add to the actual update.
Oh, I'm
Yeah, I'm
sorry.
sorry.
Yes.
Sure.
I'm sorry, let's take your picture up here.
Yes.
Maybe stand around the table with council,
Yeah,
since it was the best presentation.
yeah, it's got to be
ever.
memorialized.
Yeah, right here.
Those, right in front of them.
There you go. You can
It's an
stand right
award-winning
near your
night.
dad.
My dad
Hi, good
has
job.
this thing.
Oh, very cool.
Hey, right here.
You good? We all squeeze in?
There we go. 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Excellent.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Oh, that's not his. That's not his. Manager.
Yeah, thank you. There was nothing to add to the written report. I just would draw your attention to the fact that we do have a couple of outgoing correspondences. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them, but I have nothing additional to add to what's been included in the packet tonight.
All right. Any questions for the manager? No? Okay. Seeing none. Thank you, manager, for that thorough report.
Very thorough.
You're very welcome.
Appreciate that. All right, Dustin, do you have any reports?
I have none.
Susan?
None?
Rich?
Real brief, Parks Governance met on May 24th. Our primary goal was to meet our new facilitator and set up our retreat, which will occur in July.
Nice. That's great. Any questions for Rich about that? Okay, seeing none. I did have one report to make. Mike Bloom and I attended the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and Belonging Practices Workshop last Tuesday with the Anti-Bias Coalition. I would say it was relatively well attended, but it was really worthwhile. They do intend to host them periodically. We had an opportunity to collaborate with the other municipalities, talking, thinking, and actually doing a little planning about issues regarding diversity, equity, inclusion in our townships, and really kind of getting our hands dirty a little bit and thinking about, okay, what are some of the things we can do to address, what are the issues, what are some of the things we can do to address the issues. It was really nice to be able to collaborate with other elected officials and staff members. Do you have anything to add?
No, it was a good encapsulation. My one real takeaway is I think, it was abundantly clear that there's opportunities there for a lot of regional collaboration on initiatives and events, and that was something, we received a post-workshop survey, and that was something that I shared back to the organizers is, one, wonderful event, and two, I think as you move forward and continue with these, there's an opportunity, some synergies there for regional collaboration.
Yeah, we were paired, College Township was paired with Patton Township, so we worked primarily with them, and we decided we had very little time. It was very nice. You just sort of like jump in, come up with an idea, and start talking about it. So our 3 topics were accessible government meetings, accessible housing, and recruiting more diverse applicants. So as a township staff. So I have a little Jamboard thing here that we used while we were working on that I'll share out with you all tomorrow. Okay, that's it for COG, Regional, County, and Liaison Reports. Planning Commission.
Well, get ready for this big report. As you know, our last meeting was canceled, so really I have no report.
Well, we had one meeting.
But, I was going to get to that. We did have a meeting this week with council, and the Planning Commission and council got together and went over a host of 3 main projects. I haven't heard any feedback from the Planning Commission at this point. We do have a meeting coming up Tuesday. So I suspect there'll be some conversation, which I will report back to you as your liaison if there's anything that we need to report on. But I thought the meeting went well. There certainly was subjects there of some conversation, but I believe that we did recommend that maybe we do that twice a year. I think that came from council as well as the planning commission. So I think that'll be a wise move. So,
Great.
and not that there was anything really negative, it was just keep in touch. Keep the flow and conversation going. So other than that, do you have anything you want to take back Tuesday to the planning commission?
Anything for?
I just
The
throw
planning
that out
commission?
just
Okay.
as a farewell.
Good practice.
You know, I have to say, all of us on the planning commission, Carla, are proud of what you did. You did a great job in leadership in council, well recognized by the planning commissions. And so we wish you the best.
Oh, thank you very much. That's very kind coming from the people like those that we have on our planning commission. 'Cause they're all excellent at what they do. Thank you, Bob. Next, we have DEI reports. Does anybody have anything for this agenda item?
I had a question for council and
Great.
staff, asking about the process for making resolutions recognizing various months, various events, particularly with DEI, different months. I know that we had done the resolution at the request of, I believe, Unity Church for Black History Month, and I heard some conversation that maybe we should have gotten to do that before they asked or something like that. So I don't know if that's something we've done in the past, so I was just looking to get some feedback. I had some feedback earlier today, but if there's any
Yeah,
feedback
I
from
mean,
council about that.
You know, I would just say so June is Pride Month, and I think that's why you initially brought it up. I would say if you would like that to be something commemorated as a part of
Great.
our township, then you can bring that up also as a resident and council member.
Okay.
That's absolutely appropriate.
Great.
Any council member can bring that. It's nice to have some of that proclamation language kind of, worked out a little bit for staff.
Okay.
But that's kind of the idea. Does staff want to add anything to that?
Yeah, Mike, you had kind of responded a little bit earlier today. In the past, oftentimes, we have kind of received some suggested language to use. And we find that the easiest to work with because we know precisely what it is that folks want to be recognized, and provided that council is in agreement with that, it goes very well. But that does not preclude us from creating our own resolutions. Staff just needs that indication, that direction, that's something that should be considered for a particular meeting, and we can accommodate. But
Sure, and one, the other thing I added is we do have our workshop coming up about some of our strategic planning, and I think that's a good opportunity for us to have a little bit more of an in-depth conversation about, expectations moving forward, but absolutely, however the requests come to us, that, we'll pursue them, and I appreciate you asking the question, because it's something that internal as staff, we've been batting around a little bit, is how do we best address some of the initiatives, activities, holidays coming forward. And haven't landed on a best practice yet, but we're always looking.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and I'll take this opportunity to ad-lib about, I think, my philosophy of it too, is we could put these things on a calendar and just have them come up month after month and, rubber stamp them because it popped up and we did it. I do think that there's some positive friction about having somebody bring it to council to proclaim. It becomes a conversation, and it becomes more of a reminder of what we're actually talking about than like, oh, it's this month, it's that month. I understand that would probably be easier and neater and tidier, and we'd remember everything. But there's also, like I said, there's some friction there. I think that there's something good about doing it the one way, and there's something good about doing it the other way. I don't know which one's better, but yeah. Go ahead.
I think there's opportunities to do both. I think we can program, some things in and everything, and then we can seek somebody to come in and speak to
Good
it.
idea.
And everything. So I think we can follow up more on
That's
the
a great point.
strategic.
Yeah. Okay. So would you like, maybe at the June 15th meeting, there to be a
Yes, I would.
proclamation about Pride Month?
Yes.
June being Pride Month? Great.
There's probably got to be some sample resolutions out
Sure.
Oh,
Yeah,
definitely.
we have to
There
get
are.
out there and do
And
our
it's-
research, but
And I
yeah.
think my question was more related to what is the process as a new member of
Sure.
council? I had seen, we did the resolution for Mount Nittany, so that was an organization, and we had a resolution for Black History Month. So those are the two things I've seen done. So they were a little bit different. One was an organization, and so this is very helpful, and I would like to do that for the June 15th month, and I will work on that resolution with staff.
Great. Excellent. Anything else? Anything from the public? This is an opportunity for the public to bring anything regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion issues, or items, or topics, or successes. Yes?
Still Paul Takak, still College Township. Just wanted to let you know the parade is the 10th. It's Saturday the 10th, and there's events and festival, activities around that. So just to let everyone know. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right. That brings us to our consent agenda, which we have here. So the June 1st, 2023 consent agenda consists of CA1, approval of May 18th, 2023 regular meeting minutes. CA2, the receipt approval of the following correspondence. A, letter from Center County Planning and Community Development Office dated May 15th regarding West Nile virus program. B, a letter from Pantera Engineering dated May 24th for a time extension request for Stalker Auto Body Shop to September 8th, 2023. And C, a letter from Carla Stilson dated May 30th regarding resignation from College Township Council effective July 1st. Then we have CA3, the approval of the following, no action items. Is there any discussion? Would anybody like any of that pulled?
Madam Chair, I would like CA2C pulled, please.
Oh, okay. Anything else? All right, I will accept a motion to approve everything but CA2C.
So moved.
And Susan seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries. All right, CA2C.
Well, Representative Takak was kind enough to unbury the lead, but
Those guys.
yeah, I know. But that couldn't have happened any better and been more deserving and stuff. But council also has a duty to, with Carla's support, to move forward, as we did when Representative Takak was elected. When that occurred, we had a wonderful pool of folks that came forward. Susan likes to say that we picked the weakest link, but I think we did okay with that, and I think we still have a good pool there. We're at a crucial time for the township with various items going. One of the capital improvement plan, budget, all that stuff is hitting its nexus right now. So if I could, might I suggest a process that we reach out to our previous candidates and see if they would still be interested in
Being
an
considered.
being considered for an appointment to the Carlos remaining term.
And that sounds good to the manager.
Oh, absolutely.
Great.
I mean, I think, yeah, you have a wide berth in terms of how you move forward to fill a vacancy. When it comes to the appointment, obviously, that's at a public meeting, those types of things. If there were to be any interviews of candidates, that would also need to be at an advertised meeting. But in terms of advertising or solicitation or gathering names, that is really not scripted in the second-class township code, and so you have wide latitude. And I think it's a perfectly reasonable approach, given where we're at with timing and projects and those types of things.
And although Susan keeps referring to herself as a new member, the warranty expires at the end of this month. That's 6 months. So,
Understood.
No more excuses.
As the newest member, as the second newest member.
right, there's going to be somebody newer than you, so you can stop saying. But that, I mean, it is relatively, it's recent history that we've talked with all these folks and stuff. So I think it works. It potentially works. So I would offer that as a consensus direction for staff if agreeable.
Okay. Any comment, question, concern?
I have a follow-up after you guys reach a consensus on that, or if you reach a consensus on that.
I think it's reached.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
So the follow-up would be, reach out, contact people that you had 6 months ago had interviewed for a vacancy. If there is interest amongst individuals, how do you wish to proceed from that point forward?
We've had a recent interview with all these folks, so I think that was one of my thoughts, is that it would help our process time, so that we might potentially be able to deliberate
Understood.
and then make an appointment at our June 15th meeting, which Carla isn't attending, and for
Right,
that
so,
individual
yeah.
to start July 1st.
Essentially, yeah, first round, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that answers the question. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve CA2C.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Should've-
Me too.
I, my own letter. All right, that brings us to old business. Center Hills Village Traffic Calming Bid Award, OB1, Mr. Franson.
Thank you, Carla. As you recall, at the May meeting, we had a bid opening. We only had one bidder for the Center Hills Village Traffic Calming Project. And that bid was in the amount of $171,580. Council requested that we put it back out to bid with a modification, changing the thermoplastic markings into straight paint markings, and to do a base bid, which included all 14 of the original speed humps as proposed, and then 2 alternates, one for 10 and one for 8 speed humps. On our May 26, 2 p.m. bid opening, we received 3 bids. The summary of the bids is included in my memo, but basically the 3 bids were low bidder, and this is for the base bid, Midstate Paving at $103,477, HRI at $137,566, and Glen Hawbaker at $153,394. We've checked the bids, the math on all the bids worked out, there was no errors found. As noted previously, is we had $80,000 set aside in this year's budget for the project, and we also have $22,000 roughly left over from the $50,000 that Aspen Heights gave us towards traffic calming, leaving $102,000. And so based on these numbers, I'm recommending that we would award for the 14 original speed humps at $103,477 to Midstate Paving.
All right, questions for Don? Comments? Rich?
I'm just very happy that we got to this point. I think I indicated the last one, I think we had potentially conflicting processes. The budget is a process and it is important. I'm thankful that we have the money from Aspen Heights there, that we did get that concession into this, that we could potentially move forward with this.
Dustin, anything?
No, yeah, I'm just very happy. this is, to me, is a good example of, us working through an issue and a problem, right? And I fully support awarding the full base bid at 14 speed humps.
Okay, Susan?
I agree with Don's recommendation.
Great. Anybody online or in person wish to speak to this item? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion.
I move, I think I move.
I believe in you.
I have a problem with,
She's moving.
right now. I
We're
need to
waiting.
look at I move to award the Center Hills Village traffic calming base bid to Midstate Paving in the amount of $103,477.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? Yes, please.
Now you're just showing off.
Oh, I was going to refrain from this, but I just wanted to remind everyone that I actually brought this issue up in my first ever meeting as a member of College Township Council.
Boy.
Yes.
It was the first time I ever brought this up. It was one of the things that I heard over and over again from the residents of Center Hills Village. So while the gears of progress may turn slowly, they actually do turn. So,
They do
so
turn.
on behalf of everyone, thank you for all of your efforts.
And I appreciate you bringing that up because that's actually a testament to the election process and democracy, which I always like to be able to talk about when it comes up. At the local elected level, we do a lot of door knocking. And Paul knocked on a lot of doors when he ran for our office. He also did when he ran for his current office, but when he was running as a council member. And of course, your neighborhood was the first place you probably started, and that's what you heard a lot about. So that's, it comes full circle, so that's really special.
My first meeting.
Yeah, yeah. Very cool. All right, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. Okay, motion passes. That's excellent. I am going to call a 5-minute recess. I know, it's kind of a shocker before. We are going to come back from our recess here, start back up with OB2, Shiloh Road zoning amendment. Mr. Bloom.
Much like last month, I'm pinch hitting tonight again for Lindsay. And it's really a continuation of your discussion from the May 18th meeting. As you recall, during that discussion, there was a opportunity to include multi-use R3 uses within the planned research and business park district PRBD to allow expansions of use out off of Shiloh Road in the Dale Summit area. Within that incorporation of R3 also opens the door for planned residential developments, or PRDs. Out of that discussion, staff was directed by council to work on draft ordinance language that would outline how multifamily R3 uses can be incorporated into the PRD. And before you tonight is staff's approach to that. They have prepared an ordinance that includes, in addition to some editorial revisions, some pretty substantive comments. One, prepared a new introductory ordinance language. An amendment that previously talked about working environment is now noted as living and working environment as a better reflection of allowing residential uses. Included in the intent to allow residential development, which may invite more mixed-use development as a line in the intent statement. Allowed all uses as permitted within the multi-residential zoning district R3 within PRBD. Better worded the section regarding height to make the statement more clear. Included the parking standards that accompany residential structures per the requirements in the zoning ordinance. And also included language pertaining to updating, reviewing of phasing plans on an annual basis. As Lindsay noted in her memo, the changes are of course substantive because we are adding a new use within a zoning district. In order to expand the potential uses in the PRD, you'll remember the secondary portion of your recommendation out of the last meeting was also a remand of the planned residential development PRD to the Planning Commission. You have not seen that remand letter, but it will be forthcoming soon. And as part of that work, Planning Commission is being asked to work directly with DPZ and staff on revisions and recommendations to the PRD ordinance itself. That becomes embedded as a part of this move towards adding R3 to PRBD in the Dale Summit District. You'll recall, again, as part of our discussion at the last meeting, really the intent and the purpose behind this move is to continue on the trajectory that council has already set as part of the draft Dale Summit area plan to open up and make more flexible regulations within the Dale Summit and eventually build momentum towards an anticipated transition to some type of form-based code in the Dale Summit. So these are multiple step processes moving kind of in sequence at the moment. The requested action this evening is for council to discuss the items outlined in her memo, including the ordinance which was attached and redlined to show you kind of where the revisions were made. And after that review, to set a public hearing. The date proposed would be August 17th. Once a public hearing is set, then there's a complementary process that works with that includes staff making notification to Center Region Planning Agency, Planning Commission, and Planning Commission, providing them an opportunity to review the changes that are being proposed. And since this change would ultimately impact the R3 multifamily residential uses, staff will also notify Patton Township, since we share the R3 use and industrial uses across the municipal boundaries. So with that, I will stop and turn it back to you, Carla.
Thanks. So I just have a follow-up question regarding the setting of the public hearing. We wouldn't set a public hearing until we're sure that so we're just you're saying just setting a public hearing for these changes right here, right?
These are the zoning changes
Right.
alone.
Okay, so if these changes, because we wouldn't set a public hearing and then make a change because we'd have to reset the public hearing. Yeah. Okay, so just so everyone's clear, if you like this as it is, that's when we set the public hearing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, the only thing that this accomplished is adding R3 uses to the planned, I'm gonna do it again.
Yes.
Planned Business Research Park District.
Research and
Research
Business Park
Business Park.
District, PRBD,
PRBD, not the PRD.
the four letter,
I'll stop.
yeah, the four letter, the additional B, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, where PRD comes in is by allowing that use within this PRBD district, it enables you to then, the developer to consider a PRD. The corresponding part that we talked about at the last meeting was ultimately that remand to Planning Commission to continue making revisions to PRD. But you're exactly right. The public hearing that we're asking for tonight is just to add multifamily to the PRBD.
Okay, we're gonna go around the table, and then I'm gonna probably ask some follow-ups. Susan. So you can get your newest member.
Yes. So,
29 more days.
okay.
Hopefully.
Just to summarize what I understand, this allows us to take the PRBD, which currently does not allow for residential development in that area, and allows us to add residential to that area. And then that would allow for that mixed use that we're talking about, both in terms of the PRD as well as the transition to form-based code in the Dale Summit, with DPZ helping us with that process. Now, since we talked about this at the last meeting, we had a joint meeting with Planning Commission, and Planning Commission discussed the charrette, which takes place, I believe, June 19th. So that was something that at the last meeting, we weren't, as council, aware of the planning of the charrette or the timing of the charrette. And so I guess what I'd like to do, as the newest member of council, is ask my council members and staff to help me understand and discuss a little, perhaps further, would there be value in aligning this in some way or timing this in some way to work through this as part of the charrette? Or is this something we need to accomplish prior to the charrette to direct some of the conversation that will occur during the charrette?
What I would suggest is the direction that was given at the last meeting was that council was inclined to add the residential uses to the PRBD district. That is what this does. That said, and as Mike had alluded to earlier in his preamble, there will be a subsequent, at the same meeting, council actually remanded, not this, because this had already previously been remanded to the Planning Commission. But at the last meeting, as part of this discussion, council decided to remand the PRD component to Planning Commission. That is a remand letter that is being constructed now, with the idea that that would go to the Planning Commission just before, days, a day or two, a weekend before the start of the charrette process, with the thought process being that the charrette will be able to inform the work on the PRD. But the charrette, as it's constituted now, the charrette would not be having impact on this decision to add the residential use.
And I know that we had precedent for the R3 zoning change for the Evergreen development in the Dale Summit area. So we have done this before in that area. It just wasn't for a PRBD in that area. Okay, all right, that helps me understand. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I needed that clarification.
Dustin.
So the remand for the PRD, right, was so that we, one of the major objectives sticks out in my mind, right, was so that we could get some of that form-based code stuff in there, right, and that's why I think it's crucial that, the charrette happens. And I kind of look at this too, right, if we come down, this gets the ball rolling. It isn't us approving this ordinance yet, it's just us saying, yeah, we're good to go ahead with the public hearing, and then hence we could approve it, based off of whatever happens, or we could say, no, we're not going to, based off outcomes that may be in the charrette that we can't foresee, right? So I think, we keep things moving, in a direction, and yet we still, accomplish, having feedback from the charrette too at the same time, right? So I
And when it comes to this ordinance, you feel comfortable with it?
yeah.
Okay. Rich?
Yeah, I still conceptually support that we need to be open for business. This whole process is gonna be, well, we just talked about it, took speed bumps, it took 4 years. So this is pretty big too, so we have that. But with that said, we do have a major event in our planning cycle, the charrette coming up, invisible sign. What is the ideal process period from us setting a public hearing to the public hearing occurring so that everybody gets everybody that needs to get notified gets notified, everybody that gets to review gets to review, and everything like that?
Yeah, honestly, it's tied to the MPC. Yeah, and I'm trying to think, it's 45?
I believe
45
it's-
days,
It's
I think.
45 days of advance notice, advertising.
Okay.
Right, the property has to be posted.
Right. And then
Right.
these other organizations have to sign up for.
Well,
Check
well,
off
right,
comments.
the other thing is too, any zoning change that we affect, we do, well, we call it a 200-foot list. Any property within a 200-foot radius of any of the boundaries of the property that's being considered is notified directly by mail by the township that council is considering a rezoning. And, provide information, provide the ability for them to contact, to educate themselves.
And the
about what that's-
signs.
And yeah, the signs are posted on site.
Right.
So that process does not change in any way, shape, or form with respect to form-based code or anything of that nature. So in this particular case, that is the procedure that we would be using.
And as Adam alluded to, just adding to that procedure, we're also notifying Center Region Planning Agency and Planning Commission. They were provided an opportunity to review and comment on the proposed ordinance changes, as well as Patton Township, because that's an important factor. We do share uses across boundaries as well. So there's going to be an awful lot of eyes on this, and then you add in the component, which you typically wouldn't have in this type of decision, of the charrette, which provides additional information and additional things to consider as part of this deliberation moving forward. The timing's pretty fortunate that it worked out that way. But yeah, it's a pretty robust process.
Well, but I think it's important that we not conflate
Right.
the charrette with what is in front of you this evening.
Right.
That is.
Right, so-
This is a separate decision based on the direction that council gave staff at the last meeting, mind you. This is separate from the charrette. However, the other element to this, the remand of the PRD, will absolutely be impacted by
The charrette.
the charrette.
Yeah. So this was that was actually going to be my kind of sticking point.
Sure.
And I would also like to give Planning Commission the opportunity to say something about this specific ordinance, if you have anything to say about it, because given that we've already remanded that to Planning Commission, I know that they recommended that we deny any zoning changes. But it just seems right to me to give them in this public meeting that opportunity. If you have anything to add, Bob.
I had a couple more, but
Well, no, not this second, sorry. I have something else to say too. I have a few other questions and things, but if at any point, I just want to.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess, so my first question do the changes then, as I'm reading them, the changes sound like they then allow for that property to just be developed R3. And,
In theory, yes.
yeah, I mean, should the zoning change go through, in theory, yes. Is there,
Just clarification, if council approved the PRD that supported that.
that's what I don't think. I think this is just allowing R3 development
Well,
with or without a PRD.
It would.
Okay.
That's accurate. The the zoning change includes all the existing uses that are enumerated in the ordinance that's in front of you this evening, with the addition of multifamily housing, which is our R3 uses. So in theory, any of those enumerated uses could occur there, and they would not necessarily utilize PRD, because PRD is an option
Right.
within the PRBD ordinance,
Right, so
or
that's,
zoning district.
yeah, so that's a big deal. That it, as, I mean, Mike stated it, that is a substantive change to the PRBD zoning district. So my next question is there any way to attach the residential housing to PRD, there being a PRD, like residential can be considered through the PRD process, that kind of language, or does that,
I'll be frank, I'm not sure.
You're not sure.
At this point, but it's an interesting concept. I'm just not sure how to connect the two.
Conditional use, and is that a possibility, or?
well,
To be honest, I
don't know that anybody in here knows the answer
Yeah, I'm a little flat-footed
necessarily.
on that. We'd have to think about that.
which is fine, but also so to me, having this ordinance in front of us, I guess, can we pull up where all the PRBD zoning district is? Is it just on that corridor, or is it somewhere else?
Innovation Park.
Yeah,
Innovation Park.
is
Innovation Park as well.
And on the Shiloh Road corridor, the former.
Are there any little corners?
No.
Nooks and crannies? I mean, I remember, what was it, 9 years ago?
Well, the
When we made
PRBD
this, but,
In order for, now, the other element here is PRBD requires a minimum acreage for development. So that is, I believe the minimum is 35. It had been 50, but I believe that the minimum acreage is 35, based on the most recent modifications that were made years ago to the PRBD district. When we put those in place in that Shiloh Road corridor, we dropped the required minimum acreage for PRBD uses from 50 to 35. So there's already a restriction, if you will, to use the PRBD district, the zoning district, requires availability
A larger
or the
land plan.
potential for land
yeah, it's 35.
consolidation.
Right, proposed park shall have no maximum acreage limit, but shall contain no less than 35 acres of total land area. Now, interestingly enough, it sounded to me like that was discussed at length at the planning commission meeting. Yeah,
Well, yeah, where I was gonna go
go ahead.
with it is, if we're saying R3 is right of use for that parcel, that's of concern. For the entire parcel, if it's not as part of a PRD, that is a concern for me. And that's why we really wanted to see this and talk this through and everything. Because the reality is what we hope could go away, and the next person that comes, and now they have a right by use to do the R3.
If they have 35 acres to work with.
Right, let's just keep talking about this parcel, so
Sure.
they could come in and do R3, and I don't think that's our vision for the whole thing. We wanted it in something, and so one of the tools we used with Gateway Commercial, if I recall, was was at 30, we actually used an inverse of that it couldn't be over, was it 30%? 30% residential?
Oh, they had to have some commercial, right?
Yeah, so that it couldn't just be, all and everything like that. So we've done the opposite. We've actually limited residential to do it. Is there an opportunity to do similar, to strike some kind of balance, like we did with the Gateway Commercial to?
Right, like this change feels very, almost too substantive. Is there a way to meet the desire so that we can kind of formulate this interim toward the,
Without kicking the doors.
toward the big plan, right? Yeah, without kicking the doors wide open.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, yeah, that's just not the direction that staff was given at the last meeting.
Well,
I would just say it.
No. I think it was pretty clear on some of it that we were really tying our horse to the PRD as an element of this and everything. And what we're seeing here is that isn't occurring or can occur or whatever like that. So that may change the outlook. Again, I still fully support us keeping it open for business and moving forward. But I will say that if there's no guide rails to R3, it's just, right by use for R3, then I have a little bit of concern with that. So.
But if we,
right, like I guess the way I envision it is so how does the PRD get changed? Is that also a zoning? Is that similar to this?
It is, and that, again, keep in mind that the PRD requirements, elements that are in the zoning, in the zoning code, have been remanded by action by council at the last meeting.
To the planning
back
commission.
to the planning commission.
Yeah.
So, yeah, both of these, there's two elements here. There's a changing in the zoning, and then there is a changing of the zoning, but it's an A and a B or a 1 and a 2. And both are being contemplated as part of what was considered at the last meeting.
so is it fair to say that in order to be able to use the PRD, we need to add the R3 to the PRBD, and then we can do the PRD in that zone, but we have to have the R3.
You can't have you could do
Yes.
anything you want to the PRD,
Right.
but without allowing residential use in the
Right.
PRBD,
Right.
it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
So the point of this ordinance is to,
Yes,
allow some
exactly.
the residential use and density that you need in order to change this PRBD and have this sort of
Right.
mid-stage form-based zoning project idea. My only concern is that when we're changing the PRBD to just blanket allow R3 development without any,
No guide rails, I got you.
any guide rails, then are we making the best decision? Because let's say, I just don't see it. Like, there's nothing to entice a developer then to go through the PRD process if they don't want to. I see,
Yeah,
Mark, go ahead.
One thing I was going to add, I was part of the discussions when this zoning request came forth. And going back to the forward planning study and now the initial recommendations from DPZ, rooftops. This was part of the discussion among some of the staff, and we kind of felt if someone wants to come in and do all R3, this is what everyone's telling us we need. We need the rooftops. We
Right.
need the apartments. We need the housing. We need the people. So that's kind of how it morphed to this direction is to us, it seemed like just a natural progression of what two separate special entities are telling us we need in this area.
Right, and I don't disagree with that, but what I see as a potential is not just not just the rooftops we're talking about, right? Like these,
Yes.
what type of rooftops are we talking about? Are we talking about the rooftops that we need? Or are we talking about what in our region we've got a lot of already? Does that make sense?
Yeah, you're
Yes.
concerned about the unintended consequences
Yeah,
of this
right.
movement, and I hear it. What I don't know, and to use Adam's term, I'm a little flat-footed on, is the connection to the two, and I'm not sure what mechanism that is, and that's something we probably have to seek out. Potentially, it has, there's a way to utilize what's being remanded to Planning Commission with PRD and embed it within the ordinance. I just don't know how to get from A to B at the moment, but I understand the concern.
And there's no way to, as the newest member of council, there is no way to designate this R3 with some sort of guardrails around it. We either do it or we don't. It's a yes or a no.
That's the question. That's what we're talking about. There are a
Apparently, we
few.
didn't give proper direction to staff
Yeah.
to explore that.
Right.
And so we need to give them the opportunity to do that. I believe we need to give them the opportunity to do that. Oh, by the way, that gets the charrette in and
Yeah,
everything
well,
like that.
I mean, whatever, beyond what you have in front of you
Yeah.
here, that gets remanded to the planning commission. Again, which is fine. I'm just saying that
Right. It's-
that's the
it's just the
process, because
timing.
it's going to be different. Anything other than what's on this page is going to end up going back to planning commission, which is, again, fine, but it's going to be a derivative of some type that,
Which,
what I'm hearing, allows for R3 uses, but with some degree of restriction, qualification, requirement, something. And that-
Review, and
well,
not just a right of use.
And we will have to give thought to, is that a strict zoning change? Is it an overlay? Is it
conditionally.
conditional? Exactly.
Yeah.
So those are the things that, no, I mean, we've not looked at those.
Well, to be quite frank, no offense, Rich. Put on my Rich hat. That's the work I thought that our initial remand was going to come out with. So, but that's okay. That's where we are now. Planning Commission. So make sure that the next remand letter gives more of a shape of what we're looking for.
I would just offer that I think you should delay the remand letter to PC
Clearly.
till we get this.
I mean.
Come back to council first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no
That's a good
question that if we're doing something different than what's here, it's coming back to council first for staff to bounce off some concepts. And then after, however long that takes, after council identifies a concept that they think is appropriate, that concept would be forwarded onto the planning commission. In the meantime, the remand of the PRD makes no sense to move forward, because it remains to be seen if it's going to be required.
Yeah, it needs this.
Right.
Yeah, this is your trigger point.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the intent to remand is still there. It's just going to be focused by, because of the disconnect that we apparently had from last meeting to this meeting. And now hopefully we provided some clearer guidance so that then we can provide clearer guidance to the planning commission.
Planning Commission.
It really is
representative.
confusing, isn't it? I mean, this is some of the things that we struggled with at the planning commission was the PRDB and everything. I thought one of our recommendations was to let the charrette take place, not only to get some concepts in terms of how to deal with the whole summit area, but also how do we get there and what are the legal components that are needed in the process to go do exactly what we're talking about here, How do we get from the, the PRDB to what we're proposing? We're hiring experts that should be maybe available to give us some idea of how we might, and what are the processes. That, after all, is part of their charge. And so that is why we were saying, let's see this charrette. In fact, I think that perhaps in a pre-charrette kind of an overview to DPZ would be to put this right on the table with them and say, during the week, we need to have some good discussion on how we can accomplish, knowing what we're concerned about with R3 and having it been populated in a direction that maybe we're concerned about, to how do we get to the more mature review of the whole area. That's why we made our recommendation to hold off on any major decision-making until we had the charrette. Hopefully that week of the charrette, which is quite a long time, is structured enough that we can get these type of answers to us and to you. So that's my...
Rich?
I don't know if the charrette will provide that, but if I recall, our contract with them specifically references interim measure, working with them for
Exactly.
interim measures.
Oh, yes, definitely.
And that's the vein that I'm thinking. I don't know if the charrette will or won't provide
Well, I think that...
everything that you're indicating, but I do know that our contract with DPW, or DPZ, the Department of Public Works, does give us that authority.
And I think that might be one of the township's charges for that week charrette, is to start to begin the conversation and dialogue of how we're going to make that transition, because we're up against some pretty interesting things here.
Right.
The R3, on a cost-benefit analysis right now, to do R3 high density, it can't happen. So that land may just stay there because it really doesn't make sense right now to develop a full density like, we have in other areas.
So I
But we
think-
don't know that for sure.
Yeah. And I always appreciate those insights from the people who are, who work in those fields. And I think at this point, council and staff and planning commission are really starting to kind of come together on what we're all seeing the same picture, at least, of what we're all talking about, which is positive, though we're not exactly sure what it's gonna look like. We're at least speaking the same language, and we've maybe gotten our acronyms slightly correct.
Yes.
But what I will say is when it comes to the charrette, and what staff needs to, I think council's still going to recommend or ask staff to put together some options. Use DPZ, however you use them. I don't know if you can just email them the questions. That's excellent, but that might, the PRBD part of it might not all happen at the charrette. I think the PRD is really the piece that we need planning commission to more flesh out and really dig into. What we're talking about here is really like, how do we accommodate the PRD in the PRBD, right? Like, how do we make that work where council feels comfortable? So it's going to come to planning commission. I just think maybe for the June 15th, do you think you'll have it for June 15th? Some ideas, some options?
I think there's an opportunity, knowing that we have DPZ available. They've already provided some recommendations on PRD. As I mentioned, what I'm not sure is how do we leverage that to avoid the unintended consequences
Right.
of embedding the R3, which we're articulating here tonight. I think, one, we're, again, a little flat-footed. We don't have Lindsay here to talk through it, too, from a staff perspective. But, yeah, short answer, yes. I think we can at least come back with something conceptual that tries to accomplish that. One of the things that I will mention in regard to some of the deliberation that Planning Commission had and where staff was at the time of that recommendation, as they were going through their process, the charrettes weren't scheduled. So we didn't know exactly when or at what time in the process that was going to happen.
And that was a great thing that Mr. Hoffman mentioned at our meeting, which
Sure.
kind of, again, brought us into alignment there.
And I also, and it kind of piggybacks on something Adam said, while I think it's good that we're having the charrette, I also think, I don't know that it's going to get this deep into the weeds. You know, the charrette's going to be a discussion with stakeholders, public, that talks really, honestly, at the end of the day, my anticipation is some affirmation of the vision that's already been articulated in the Dale Summit Area Plan. Now, it may be teased out, it may be modified a little bit, but I don't know that it's going to get so deep into the weeds to provide the kind of connective tissue that we're talking about in true zoning amendments. That said, to your earlier question, I think we can bring a concept back. I don't know what it looks like tonight, but I have a concept, at least in my head, and I don't know if Adam does and the rest of staff, of what that could potentially look like. I just need to have some discussions with Lindsay and
Lindsay,
DPZ.
of course, yeah. So I think the PRD piece, sort of the bigger picture piece, pulling all those things together, doing this sort of interim project idea, and how does it relate in the big picture to the land we're talking about as a whole, we can happen at the charrette. This PRBD ordinance change is gonna, I think it's okay to move it a little faster, so that it can come back because it's still then going to, whatever changes happen are still going to be remanded to the Planning Commission, and when it gets remanded to the Planning Commission, by that point, the charrette will have happened. But staff needs to come up with some interim, things in the interim. And then while we have everyone's attention, I will take this opportunity to let you all know that the week of June 19th to the 23rd, College Township will be hosting a charrette. And what is a charrette, you ask? Mike Bloom.
We will be pushing out information, haven't gotten to it this week, but DPZ has provided us some information. There are specific times and specific intents for the time blocks for a charrette. Again, this goes back to essentially completing the work that you've already started with the Dale Summit Area Plan, now kind of reframed as the Dale Summit Area Redevelopment Plan. I believe we're going to be looking towards affirmation, potential of some revision to that vision and some of those goals, objectives, and implementation strategies that were in that plan itself. But to your point, we will be pushing out that information as early as possibly tomorrow in the form of our social media, our website, and a press release formally announcing that this is coming.
Great, and nicely done, whoever put that up on the screen. Oh, wow, while you were talking.
So to your question, what is a charrette? It's a, which Mike didn't answer, by the way, just pointing it out.
I'm not award winner.
It's basically, it's a planning brainstorming session.
Yes.
Is in essence what it is. And the key there is assembling the right folks in the room, which is really anyone that has an interest in the area or an interest in the topic, and teasing out ideas and putting them on paper and extrapolating as a result. And here I am talking about charrettes when we have an architect that's probably done one or two, standing at the lectern here.
Well, the interesting thing about the charrette is that in recent years, it wasn't just to have the charrette and have that interaction, but rather, what are we getting out of it at the end of 3 days or 4 days? What's the takeaway? And so I'm thinking that it'll be a pretty good experience where they're going to actually put on paper or graphically in some three-dimensional form what they're thinking about. That's the key. That'll be really interesting. Mike, could I ask you a question?
Sure.
We have a meeting coming up on Tuesday.
Yep.
Planning Commission. could you be available to, because you know, when I go back with these notes, it's just going to open up some things that I'm not sure will be controllable. And I don't know what I mean by that, but it's just, there's a lot of discussion going on here that, that'll just open up a whole series of nightly events. But I'm wondering if you could be there just to overview what the council has discussed tonight.
Sure.
Just the situation that you feel you're in and what needs to be thought of a little bit more and how we might, just so that we start with a clear understanding from the PC members to staff, to council, that where you are right now is something that we all recognize.
Sure.
I can try to explain it, but I think it should come from,
Yeah, frankly, that night, I'm not sure if I'm available. I'll have to look. If I can't, we can have somebody there and encapsulate it in a way. And I do think, you know, where we're headed is somewhere in between the two recommendations that we talked about at the last meeting. It's kind of a hybrid, somewhere in between those two. So somebody will be available, Bob.
I think you do
Or
a
you
good
could punt
job
it,
in
Bob. You could just
presentation.
say,
so-
I'm not prepared to talk about this at this point, and just punt.
Pardon me?
You could just punt if nobody's available, right? Just say, look, we'll come back to that. You know, maybe that's another joint meeting coming up.
And frankly, to that point, Dustin, which is a good point as well, obviously, staff's going to go back and do some work, do some brainstorming on what this may look like. Council's going to have another shot at it at the 15th. That may actually work out well because we can give you some concepts, but right now we don't have the pieces. So it might be a little premature to get into too far
Well,
into
and
the weeds
also
on
we
the
don't
6th.
have the remand letter, so we don't really have that depth,
Right.
that starting
Yeah.
point
Yeah.
to proceed. Okay, well, maybe I take that under advice,
Yep,
Dustin.
great.
Yeah.
Just,
All right.
that's the safe way to do it.
No, this is good. I think staff has some direction, and do you need us to make a motion to table or anything? Or are we good to just give staff the further direction and it'll come back?
It'll come back.
Perfect. All right, great. That brings us, go
Could
ahead.
I just make one point? For the charrette, I really don't, I want to make sure that we understand that we don't want this one parcel to influence the greater and everything. So,
Right, and to that
so I
point,
do, we need to,
to that point,
Keep 'em.
for our viewing audience, the land we're talking about is encompasses not only Shiloh, the properties surrounding Shiloh Road, but also the Nittany Mall area and into some of the industrial, into some of the industrial area back behind the mall. So it's quite a sizable area, and that's a really good point. Thank you, Rich. Okay, so that's going to bring us to new business 1, Stony Batter on-street parking. Amy,
No problem. First of all, I will apologize for my voice. I'm not sure why I sound like a frog, but I do. This
you
item-
sound better than a frog.
Do I? Okay, thank you.
Very much so.
Wow.
That's a first.
Yes, I think probably would be beneficial if we could bring up my memo, because that way you can, I don't know how clear the photos will be, but we'll see. So
Better
we're-
on these.
What's that?
Better here than on projector.
Well, this is true, this is true. We've definitely made some upgrades. So this topic originally was presented to council back in December of 2020, and it was a result of the several issues raised at the Parks and Rec level, with parking being just one of the issues. There was other issues, of course. And I believe, Dustin, you had asked that this be put on tonight's agenda. I was not at the meeting, I believe that you asked for it, so I was a little lost.
I asked via email.
Oh, it was, okay,
Yeah,
so then I
because,
didn't miss that, okay.
yeah, just give
All
that
right.
background. I had a neighbor, a couple neighbors up, because I live up there, right? I had a couple neighbors approach me and say, hey, is there any way we can just talk about, you know, because we're still having not to steal anybody's thunder, but we still have cars illegally parking along the road.
Sure.
Yeah,
Where it's
So-
indicated no parking.
right.
Yeah.
So, given what was in the email that you had provided us last week, I did my best to try to pull together basically I started with that memo from 2020 and just dusted it off and went from there. I started with this particular picture only because it does show where Stony Batter is, and I know there's still some confusion as to where it's not Mount Nittany. It's a very small piece of Mount Nittany, or portion of the bottom of Mount Nittany. That being said, as we continue through, I'll go ahead and let you scroll through. There's a little bit of background as to how we have access to Stony Batter. There is an easement noted in the, did I say this right, Muma? Property deed to the old Lamont Water Company, because Stony Batter was property that was owned by Lamont Water Company. When the township overtook the company, we acquired the lands. I have not seen any specific easement to that access, other than it's in the deed reference. But we assume that the rights were transferred to the township when the Lamont Water Company was acquired. So, in 2020, the concerns about parking and safety were raised due to the consistently illegally parked cars, and there were several photos that were submitted, and we can just kind of scroll through a few of them. These were in the original memo. If you continue scrolling down, you'll just see there was a lot. This was the one that sparked everything.
I think I took that one.
I think you did.
Well done, Justin. I like your framing.
Which, of course, no emergency vehicle could get past there if they wanted to at this point in time, which I think was what sparked the whole
Yeah,
discussion.
that's very scary.
Yeah. This one was taken from another resident up there. That just shows the consistent, and of course, if you've noticed, everybody who is parked on the right-hand side of the road is parked illegally because they are parked against traffic. And there's a police car in the background. So, that being said, we had presented three items for council to consider. And I'll go into the head-in parking a little bit more and a little bit further down in the memo. That was item number one. Number two was consider posting both sides of Mount Nittany Road, no parking anytime. And number three, designate all of the shell pit, or what ended up being a part of it, for parking. So at that time, council directed staff to do 2 and 3. We did not tackle number 1. And I want to make note, I think, Dustin, one of the things you asked for was what was the right-of-way width. Our GIS mapping shows a 40-foot right-of-way width and a 16-foot cartway. I have not found an ordinance or any kind of deed of dedication or anything on that road. I think it's because it's so old. So we're going by what our mapping shows and some other items, but other than that, we do not have an ordinance specifically to that roadway that I could find. I don't know if Dawn has anything.
Is it currently at 16 foot? Is that what it is?
I haven't measured it specifically. I believe it is pretty close to that.
Okay.
Yes. So.
But that head-in parking that's there is beyond that 16 foot, right?
Yes.
That's into what would be considered the right of way.
Right. And again, the right of way is only 40 feet. So as we scroll down a little bit more, I'll go back and take care of it.
Yeah, that doesn't leave a whole lot.
It doesn't. Now, this area up here is what is right at the trailhead, and we did indicate there's some parking, there's a sign there that basically says no parking, designated turnaround, to hopefully keep people at least one space, so as you come up to the top of the trailhead, you had some abilities to maneuver around it to go back down the mountain versus going onto private property to try to turn around. And I just wanted to make sure that was one of the signs that we installed. The other head-in parking goes to the left there and continues on. Go ahead and continue, Mike, please. The other photos that I took, we passed an ordinance that established no parking anytime along the south side, which in this case is the right-hand side of the photo, from the Pearl Lane, which is even further back from this photo, all the way to the trailhead. So there is no parking on the right-hand side of the road, period. From Pearl Lane, which is around the bend down below Dustin's house, all the way to the trailhead, and continue on. We also, in the same ordinance, established no parking anytime along the north side. Now, this is actually going down the hill. So you've gone up to the trailhead, you've turned around, you're heading back down.
Porta-John's behind you on your right.
Yeah. The no parking sign that you see here has an arrow from that point down. So everything up here from the sign up to the right of the picture is what would be allowed parking. And it ends up being, I know one of the thoughts, or one of the questions was, how much does that actually encompass? And it ends up being roughly let me find my notes here. There should be about 5 parallel parking spaces and about 8 head-in. Nothing is marked specifically, but given the distances and the standard size for a parking space, that's, again, 13 spaces from the Bell property up to the trailhead.
Yeah, so you can still parallel park there and then some
Right.
head-in spaces, right?
And
too,
the next picture shows a little bit more specifically, and this is where I wanted to show you. So you can see, this encompasses all of the parking that's allowed technically up at the trailhead, starting with the one car furthest down in the photo. That is a parallel parker. You've got 2 areas of head-in, and then you've got the small head-in parking roughly here at the very top of the trailhead. This is all located around the Duckworth property. What I do not know is exactly where the 40-foot right-of-way is. And I'm not sure that it's in contention at this point. I just want to bring that up. So. Does this pointer work?
It works, yeah.
Oh, does it? Okay, I know last time I had a pointer.
Yeah, and so I just requested, because after requesting to get this on the agenda, just a follow-up email, hey, what things you think would be helpful, I asked for the right-of-way, just so, a better understanding of that head-in parking and the ability to use that or utilize that, or even, more head-in parking. So, as options. That's why I'd asked that.
Yeah, I know one of the things we looked at is, if not mistaken, several of these are ash trees, so they're probably not long for this life. And if at all possible, it is, something that we could consider would be establishing a true head-in all the way along, eliminating the parallel, the parallel with the street, like this car is, and just do head-in. But again, I think it's very important that we find out where that 40-foot is.
Yeah.
And the other thing we have to think about is if we're pushing off this area, this does slope down to the Duckworth property. Is there going to be a retaining wall that's needing? Is there a cost associated with that? None of that has been looked at, but I just wanted to bring it up because I know it was discussed. All right. So,
Just real quick, back in the day, this was expanded at one time. There used to be probably 4 spaces of head-in parking. And one of the initiatives that was taken by the township was to clean that up to a point that now exists. So probably 15, 20 years ago, you had about 4 head-in spaces total. And through working with either removal of dead trees, et cetera, and then just cleaning up, trying to square off some of that area, created the total amount of head-in parking that you have here today.
Okay.
Just
FYI. So, all right, so as we continue down, the other item we talked about was the shale pit. And at that time, back in 2020, we were using all of the shale pit for township purposes. Council directed staff to at least cordon off half of it for parking, a designated parking area, which is on the other side of these concrete barriers. And then this side over here ended up being township operations. When we were able to create this park side over here, I think we painted out roughly 18 spaces there. So that also being said, we had installed a gate over here in case we had people who would park in our side during daylight hours and made it hard for us to use the site. We have never had any issues with that. So we've never closed that gate, and we actually repurposed it and relocated it because we've never had a problem. So if you continue on down, this photo shows the current conditions less the gate. And you can see that you can slowly, very faintly see some of the lines that we have here. And we will be striping them again as soon as we do the dust control, hopefully within the next few weeks. People had parked over here when we were not doing our operations, so it's not that it was off limits. It just wasn't as defined as this side over here.
Didn't you add a new sign there, Amy?
We did. So these are the old signs, and I think the next photo now shows the last. And I'm sorry that they didn't. It was a beautiful day, but you can't really read it.
Oh, yeah.
This is the standardized sign that council asked Parks and Rec to come up with regarding all parks and limit of parking or prohibiting parking from dusk to dawn. So this sign here now says basically, no parking, the park and parking are closed. This one basically says no overnight parking to make sure that we don't get anybody to camp out here. And then the one that said no parking beyond this point was moved all the way to the back here, which coincides roughly with the private property at the end of the lane. So it kind of makes a lot more sense now. Originally that no parking beyond this point was right here, and it was very confusing because people didn't know if they really could park in the township side of things.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
so that being said, we unfortunately, I'm sorry, if you would scroll back down a little bit there, right here, to the verbiage. You would ask about the fire apparatus. I did talk to Sean Kaufman. He noted that our ordinance will tell us what we need to know. I found reference that the requirement for lane width for boulevard is 12 feet, which I think is the minimum that we'd be looking at. I know we have a 2-lane road, but obviously if you have a 1-lane road, you need it to be 12 feet for fire apparatus. Mount Nittany, I did do kind of a mapping without going out to the site. It is roughly around 16 feet, so you really couldn't have any parking and still be able to maneuver with an emergency vehicle or fire apparatus. And then the other thing was enforcement. I requested a report, had not received it to date, so I don't know those numbers. I think you might have a little bit of information.
Yeah, I have information from from January 1st through March 30th of this year. And I can tell you that beginning in March, on March 5th, there were 4 citations that were issued. On March 18th, there were 4 citations issued. And on March 26th, there were 5 citations issued. So at our request, and that's just this year, at our request back in 2020, 2021, when we've talked about this before, we did reach out to State College Police Department and asked for more consistent enforcement of parking violations in the area, and I believe that we've been getting that. I think the information that Amy has requested will be much more holistic and probably show us over time the amount of enforcement that has been going on. But I can, just from this sampling of 3 months, they've been active. I mean, I'm sure there's probably 3 or 4 times this number that could have been written.
Yeah,
But
they don't always write them. They'll just drive up and check it out and then leave.
fair enough.
Yeah, they don't always write a ticket. I don't know why. I've seen them a couple times up there, just walk along and, maybe tell people. I mean, when I'm walking my dog or something, I'll tell people, hey, you're not supposed to park there. You might get a ticket. Yeah, I see the police don't always seem to be consistently writing the citations, and they're not consistently going up there. I don't know why. Yeah. So I just say that because I'm not sure that's going to be a good gauge of how much illegal parking we have.
Oh, I think the pictures speak volumes. There's substantially more illegal parking that's occurring than what the citations indicate.
Well, yeah, and I think Eric sent out, I don't know if anybody saw his email, but just on Sunday, he'd seen some too, right? Yeah, and that's usually when you'll see it, based off, when it's just real busy. And it's like, I think, the point's there on the paved side of the road, but, once somebody does it, then the next person just goes in front of them, and then the next person goes in front of them, and that's just kind of how it does it.
One thing I would offer you, I have some knowledge of how the police work. On a weekend, we have 1 or 2 cars assigned to the township. If someone's tied up on accidents and things of that sort, we contract to the borough for police coverage. A simple call to the 800 phone number and say, hey, they're starting to park here, could you send someone up? If the township cars are busy, it's going to take 20 minutes for someone to drive out from the borough and write a few tickets. So it would never be wrong if you're up there and you observe something to make a quick phone call.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I would just add on the parking, and I know I'm talking a lot about this because I'm close to it, right? I don't think it's working. And that's why I brought it up. I don't think the continued writing of the citations, whatever you may speculate why, I think there's a lot of first-time visitors up there, and one-time visitors. The folks that go up there all the time know the deal. So, they know where to park and they don't have any problems. But, I think it's those one-time or first-time visitors that tend to park illegally. Usually when I stop to folks, they have no idea, I routinely see people stop in front of my house and they're thinking, where should I park? Oh, I'm looking around at signs, they'll back up even, and sometimes they'll drive down Larry Riffle's driveway right by my house and go down that way. So, yeah.
All right, so that's the report, that's the update. It sounds like there's still a problem. It does also sound like staff has a little bit of maybe work we can do on making some of these right-of-ways re-official. Is that something that we could or should pursue, or no? Is it okay just being, it's really old and there's no actual paperwork on that? I don't know.
Well, you'd have to research the deeds and maybe just go out and find the property pins and just, if the pins are out there, you can establish where it's at and see what the deeds claim it is.
Yeah, and the reason I say that is because if that's something that's inhibiting us from making decisions to either do this or do that, then maybe that's something that we can be working on. Even if it's at a snail's pace, at least it's going somewhere.
I can guarantee a snail's pace.
Well, but to be honest, regardless of what we find out there, they're physically there are limits.
Okay.
There are such limitations to what could be done.
Right.
I guess my question to my staff is, would it matter if we knew?
That's, yeah.
Well, if you knew and it was a very minor thing to ask for, maybe a right-of-way 5 feet wide in order to turn parallel parking spots into perpendicular where you're getting 3 times as many cars, it might be worth it. I mean, maybe a conversation with the owner and say, if we were to ask for 5 feet of right-of-way so that we could do this to make it much safer, you play up the safety and maybe you could get that.
Well, and honestly, I have to ask the question: is how many people on Mount Nittany at once is too many? Like, I mean.
That's that's a larger conversation. We're not going to be able to do.
And on those busy weekends, we could add another 15 spaces and still the cars.
That's just going to encourage 15 more people to go.
I've had the same exact thought, exactly, and I would to the understanding of the right of way and all that, and maybe potentially adding more head-in spots. I think we're addressing adding more spots, right? We are addressing that with the shale pit, and it's focused and concentrated.
Okay.
And I full-heartedly agree with you, right? At what point, do you turn Paradise into a parking lot? And then, so we get 1,000 people on the mountain, right? Is that really what we should be doing?
Enjoy the rest of the
I mean,
month.
actually, I mean,
Sign up at the top.
Thought that I had,
Have
you're
something at the
almost at a point where you might want to consider physical barriers, you saw those concrete blocks, placed to prohibit parking in areas that are problematic.
Yeah.
I mean, as opposed to trying to accommodate.
Right, instead of these nice little signs next to clearly where everybody's parking, just something
just put a barrier there and make it impossible for anything other than a bicycle to park between them.
I mean, I wish, I agree, but I just feel like some of those folks would just park beside the barrier. I really do. I mean, when they were, before the no parking down in front of my house, they were completely parking 1 lane full, just parking in it. You saw those pictures.
Well, though, maybe it's worth, to try.
No, I don't want to discount it. I think it's worth a try.
We're gonna have to keep throwing the darts at the dartboard until we figure out what works.
I think Parks and Rec even discussed maybe, developing different trailheads to try to
Yeah.
Not have them just here, but different spots on Mount Nittany, so maybe you could get people to, entice to go to different areas and park.
Yeah.
But, that is, I think, a little bit of a long-term goal at this point, not short-term. So.
Okay. How do you feel? Do you want, is there?
I just wanted, if you could just pull up that one picture from looking down East Mount Nittany Road from the trailhead at your back again. And I just wanted to point out one thing. I think that could be an easy short-term win for us. Now, Eric had mentioned, so if you remember, okay, so if you look at this, the Y, it's East Mount Nittany Road and West Mount Nittany Road, right, when you get up there. West Mount Nittany Road goes to the shale pit, East Mount Nittany Road goes out to the trailhead, and that's this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we do have a picture that it does have the Y, which picture?
No, I want to see this one right there.
Okay.
Yeah, right back.
Okay.
Yeah, so you see the wood pile, that's Mr. Dave Bell's wood pile, and I think that's roughly your corner, right, Dave?
It is, that's what
Yeah.
it is.
So council had already approved no parking from that down the whole way.
Down the hill, right.
I think a short-term fix would be adding at least 1 or 2 more signs before you get to the Bell's driveway, because I think that's what's happening. They drive past that sign, and I don't think there is any sign till you get past the Bell's driveway.
I think you're correct.
Oh, so they're
Yeah.
seeing that as a beginning.
It's not marked as no parking.
Yeah.
And once you start that, that pattern, people jump in. I can fit my car between this no parking sign and that no parking sign.
And I would just, and I'll shut up after this, I would leave it council as a long-term consideration, right? Because I do fully agree, versus accommodating, maybe prohibiting, with the cartway, it's good to see those facts. I would say we shouldn't allow any parallel parking on Mount Nittany Road as it stands right now. I mean, that's what I would propose as a long-term.
None.
Yeah.
Especially once our stage area
Yeah.
has moved and we are making up for that lost parking, right? So both of those sides will be open.
Yeah, the parallel parking right now, what'd you say, maybe 5 spots right there?
Yeah, roughly,
Yeah, maybe, if you squeeze them in, so you're losing about 5 spots.
Oh, okay. Rich?
Sounds like a capital improvement plan topic.
Yeah. Susan?
Capital improvement plan.
Oh, cool.
Is anyone here to speak on this item? Please, come to the lectern, state your name.
I'm shy, so pardon my...
So he's only come up because I called him out, right?
That's my neighbor.
Sorry.
Yeah, somewhat.
Nice. Good one.
Dave Bell, I live beside Dustin. That's my wood pile, and our house is 100 feet down the road. The signs are confusing to me and a lot of people. You just can't figure out, well, what does this mean? It doesn't say between signs or no parking, it just says whatever that thing is. I walk there daily. You don't have a sign until down almost to Dustin's place. There might be use for another sign there, down by our driveway. We've had people park in our driveway before you had the ordinance in. The shale pit, I've never seen full, even on a busy weekend. I really don't think there's much need to do anything more now, because it's never full. It's never, where they don't store stuff on this end, it does get full, but I've never seen the whole thing. There's only maybe the one area is full, but there's like 4 cars in the other area. It's never full. So I don't really think, except for signage, I really don't think there's much to do. And the barriers, I don't want barriers in front of my house. No offense, Adam.
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, I understand completely.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, curbing. Full reveal curbing would be an option, but obviously expensive.
Wow.
Yeah.
You went that way.
So, just listening to you talk about the shell pit and there not being a lot of parking there, and then also reading Eric's comment here about the porta potty. You know, I think we've maybe deliberated this enough tonight in a public meeting, and I really appreciate you coming out and offering your perspective. I'd also just throw out with the idea of the porta potty, having the porta potty up at the trailhead encourages that, like, that's where, when you go to parks, when you go to state parks, when you go to, you know, things like that, the porta potty is where you park.
Oh, there's the porta potty.
It's a car magnet. It's a car magnet. So all that to say, if there were a decision for the township to take over the porta potty, put it at the shell pit.
Put it at the shell pit.
I don't know how that would work with Mr. Lorsch's situation that he's got going on, but it may be for discussion, just an idea.
Very good discussion,
Yeah.
I think.
And then the hike is the road up to the trail. You know, like, that's just part of the hike. Make your hike a little longer.
And there needs to be a sign where they park in the shell pit, which way the trail is, because nobody, I walk my dogs there every day, and I walk there anyway. They come and say, which way's the trailhead?
Yeah,
There needs to be a sign there. Definitely a sign there.
interesting. Yeah, so some room for improvement.
Just one on the no parking, could we add something that says for the next X number of feet? Just to give it some, again, oh, well, it's
Yeah,
not
the no
there.
parking between signs piece, something like that, yeah, I don't
Yeah, I
know.
know there was a.
That means people needs to understand what 500 feet actually is, but, you know,
Well, and
it's
I only
it's a
think in
start.
meters.
Yeah,
Old
right.
standards did use text and words and numbers. Now it's more symbols, so that's why we've gone away from the actual
Mhm.
wording and more of the arrows and symbol, because it's supposed to be more universally accepted.
Yep, nope.
That being
It's-
said, I think we might be able to figure out something.
Yeah, well, our car
something
has
out from
signals,
the
and I don't
archives.
have any idea. I went on and off, you know, the whole bit. So maybe it's me, but,
I don't think
I
so,
don't
I
know.
think
You're
you've
not
got some allies.
yeah. So, okay, thank you very much.
Thank
Thanks,
you so
Dave.
much. All right, do you feel comfortable?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Okay,
Thanks
great.
for entertaining.
Absolutely, and thanks Amy and the rest of the staff for doing that report. NB2, Trout Unlimited Growing Greener Grant.
Yeah, I'm gonna kick this off.
Thanks, Adam.
The township was contacted recently by Trout Unlimited. We actually have Mr. Ford Stryker and I think some other folks from Trout Unlimited are represented here this evening regarding a request for the township to support Trout Unlimited's DEP grant for a substantial project in the Millbrook Marsh along Slab Cabin. And we have a graphic here that I think will help this. Essentially, the project is focused on building structures to limit erosion, reconnecting the floodplain here. And the reason the township is involved here is in the, I don't have
Do you
the
want the pointer here? Let me,
Oh, I'm sorry.
But the township actually owns the beginning, if you will, the beginning and the end pieces of property of this project. So this is the College Township building here. And we need to go back up just a bit, Mike. There we go. This shaded orange area here is kind of the terminus of the project. Township owns both of these parcels. And so as part of that, it's one of the reasons that Trout Unlimited has approached us for support of this grant, understanding that if in fact Trout Unlimited receives the grant, that part of the requirements is ongoing maintenance for the systems that are going to be installed. And in order to do that, there would then be a second part of the agreement, if you would. There would be an agreement between Trout Unlimited and the township to allow for that, what I'll call perpetual care of the installation that's going to be made here. So essentially, the first part of this is seeking support of this Trout Unlimited project. My understanding, we have Kathy Madison here with us this evening as well, who's chair of the Center Region Parks and Recreation Authority, under whose auspices the Millbrook Marsh Falls as well. My understanding is that this has been vetted with Millbrook Marsh folks. They understand what the project is. There are some synergies with various future projects that the Marsh may be undertaking that mesh nicely with this particular Trout Unlimited project. And so from that standpoint, there seems to be support. And in fact, I know that Melissa Kaufman, I believe, has already provided Trout Unlimited with their support letters. So that part, if that was a concern for council about the impact there, that has been addressed. There's a second part that, from a College Township perspective, the council may wish to consider here. In this area, and those of you that are familiar with the bike path that runs along 322 in this area, you may recall that you come upon a bit of a clearing here on your walk as you head toward Spring Creek Park, right? This area has been identified as some ancillary work as part of this grant and by Trout Unlimited to be created or recreated, if you will, as a pollinator plot. And we have a request for College Township to consider the potential of donating the $7,500 as basically a match toward the creation of this pollinator plot. So this is really in front of you this evening, kind of a two-pronged request. First is support of the grant application to perform the work along the stream banks. Number one, recognizing that if the grant is awarded, there'd be a longer-term agreement for maintenance of that. But that's a secondary step. And then the second element to this is consideration of future funding, $7,500 for the pollinator plot. So that, in a nutshell, is an overview, and I would be happy to yield the floor to anyone that wanted to speak at any greater depth or length about this. Or
You've stayed here this long.
to help answer any questions
I'm
that
sorry, I
council
told
may
you to come
have.
at 7:30. I thought we'd be fast, like 8-ish.
Yeah, good evening. So I guess I'm the only thing between you guys and going home.
Oh, no, we do have another agenda.
No, they're kind enough to make sure there's more stuff.
I'm not letting anybody leave.
Yeah.
All right. Your almost last meeting, right? Okay, yeah, so my name is Ford Stryker. I'm a volunteer with the Spring Creek Chapter Trout Unlimited, and I want to thank you for letting me talk. Adam did a really great job, of explaining the project. Bob Durick is here with me. Bob's also a volunteer with the Spring Creek Chapter Trout Unlimited, and in his spare time, he works for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and actually designed the project. So I'm here to take any easy questions, and if you guys have any really tough questions, you can ask him because he knows everything about it. I just, a couple of issues or a little background about the project, and I'll be really brief, but I think you may know that Slab Cabin Run is classified as an impaired stream, and there's a number of reasons for that. Upstream agricultural runoff from the golf course, but down in the marsh here, it's more impaired from urban runoff and stormwater, and because there's so much impervious area around, every time there's a big rainstorm, you get a flood of water going down there. What's happened is the streams become channelized, so there's some really deep banks there, so there's a lot of erosion and there's a lot of silt. So the projects that we've come up with is to try to limit the amount of erosion and reconnect the stream to the floodplain, which will also help downstream and mitigate flooding in the future. So that's sort of the big idea. The whole project cost is about $473,000 plus or minus. We've been able to obtain, really through U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, a $130,000 commitment of some money they have access to. Plus, they're going to donate $25,000 of in-kind support. So we've got quite a lot of money already committed. We have some more opportunities. I don't want to. They're not there yet, so I don't want to get into any detail, but we've got at least that much money. The thing is, though, we have to spend $130,000 next year or it expires, so there's some urgency here. The other urgent factor is that the grants are due on June 23rd, and if you're late, you're not eligible. So I feel like I'm under the gun to get this done. Working in Millbrook is complicated because you've got Center Region Parks and Rec who have been very supportive, but there's an easement on the property, and that's held by Clearwater. And Clearwater just today sent a letter approving the project. Also, some organization named Penn State owns the property, and they have to approve it, and they sent a letter today also saying they approve it. So, you know, the stars are sort of lining up here. However, the project isn't all in Millbrook Marsh. Part of it's in the township, and that's why your support would be really helpful. If we don't get it, we'll have to just erase your part of the project from either end. But I'd rather not do that, but because I think it's really important to do that. So I'd really appreciate your support for that part of the project. And the pollinator plot is a nice addition. It'll frankly help make the grant more competitive, but it's also a good thing for the environment. The execution of that will probably be done by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and it will be similar to the pollinator plot that was done at Kissinger Meadow. And I'm guessing that many of you are familiar with what happened there. So I'll stop, and if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to respond. Or if they're really hard, I'm going to let Bob take them.
Thank you, and also thanks for all the work you do as the local chapter of Trout Unlimited. You show up at all the right times, so we really appreciate it. Any questions, comments?
A few.
Yeah, please, Dustin.
Hey, I haven't had a chance to meet you guys yet, so I actually sit on the Spring Creek Watershed Commission.
I've seen you on TV.
Yeah. So I just wanted, first question is this the entire overlay of the project? So we're bookending from the College Township, each part of the stream, basically?
Yes.
Yeah, the start and stop of it. Okay, excellent. And then, I guess, for the rest of the council to consider, and I didn't know if you guys had any pictures ready, but in case you guys aren't familiar with what these things look like, maybe we could share some of those photos, what, stream bank restoration could tend to look like, and those type of things. But I'm sure you've seen a couple of them around. Anyhow, the maintenance is my concern, right? So us as being the landowner, how many restorations do we expect to have within our property boundaries? Because then we have to consider, staff maintaining those things, and what's the maintenance look like?
Okay, this is a hard question, so Bob, you're right.
Yeah.
It's not that hard.
Could you speak to the mic, thanks?
Basically, the requirements are that you don't mess it up.
Okay.
That's really the requirement. The structures are pretty solid. If you observe it, you call Trout Unlimited, and we go to Fish and Wildlife, and they'll come in and fix it. If it's complicated at all, we actually don't want you fixing it, because you don't know how. You don't have anybody on staff that knows how, because it's not like building a building. There's only probably 10 people who can drive an excavator in the state and do the kind of work that is done, that it requires here, because you're dealing with big logs, big rocks.
But we would incur the cost for that maintenance?
No.
Okay.
Probably not. I don't know of
Maybe if
any.
we caused
You
it.
have, you might, Trout Road
Yeah.
to Margie's Rock and Box property.
Yep.
That's a project that Trout Unlimited and U.S.
Yep.
Fish and Wildlife did. It's also on your property. You're
Excellent.
also on the hook for the maintenance of that. And so far, you haven't had to do any
So
particular
it's more of
things in
an
terms of
oversight
maintenance.
then? More of a watch? Yeah.
Yeah, and it happens that Adam Smith, who, many of you know, lives on that section. So he pretty much pays attention to it. And we've actually done 2 projects down there in the last 4 years. Also, the pollinator plot
we have a pollinator plot that we put on Millbrook just by the Quonset hut that we're maintaining, so you have a lot of past experience with U.S. Fish and Wildlife and Trout Unlimited.
So that was my next question on the pollinator plot, was the maintenance of that, because I know they require a lot of maintenance until they get going, right?
It's important that you commit because it requires quite a bit of maintenance. And at this point, you've taken over the maintenance of G. Kissinger's, I think.
Yeah.
Judy Sittler was president before I was of Trout Unlimited, and she's on the committee, I think.
Yeah, yeah, and so, I'm aware of the Kissinger Meadow, and I understand how much maintenance, and I'm sure Amy can talk to this more in detail. And having gone to PSATs and taking the, the course about pollinator plots and understand the amount of maintenance that it does require, that is my concern, is us being able to keep up with maintenance. I love the idea, I'm totally in support of the concept. It's just, maintaining that and making sure that it stays that pollinator is where, we gotta look at some things. That's all I want to voice. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Justin. Susan?
I think it makes sense that we would not do anything other than support the project if we're bookending the project and you can't do it without our support, and you're asking us to maintain it by not doing anything. So that's what I'm understanding. That makes sense.
We'll probably want access. One of our access points would probably be right over there.
Right.
And cross it. The way we have to access it because of the wetlands, the wetlands is all down here. None of it is up here. As you think about the way it works. So, your parking lot down and below, we would probably come in and cross and do some of the upper work from that point of view. And obviously, we haven't asked permission, but we would.
Understood.
Thank you.
Sorry, Susan.
So the only other question is Dustin's question, which I wouldn't have known to ask, would be, what are the costs of maintaining a pollinator garden, and how much work does that require?
That's a pretty sizable
Well,
one, too.
I'll just point out that the pollinator plots that they're discussing are not on our property.
Correct.
Those are the responsibility of Millbrook Marsh, and
Have they committed to maintaining
or
them?
no, who's responsible for that?
Well, we'd still be paying it.
My understanding is the pollinator garden is on College Township property, correct?
No, it's in the marsh.
It's in the
Yeah,
marsh.
It's all part of the lease.
Right, no, I understand that. And
You'll need to come up, Kathy.
I'll just.
Sorry. Yeah, we don't have any costs.
No, but we'd still, but the COG would be paying the maintenance for that, right? And so we all know from a COG perspective that they are understaffed in Parks and Rec already.
That's an important distinction.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
direct versus cog.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, that's.
Kathy Madison.
That's one of the reasons I'm here. I'm Kathy Madison, I'm the College Township resident, but I also am the chairperson of the authority. And I need to say that we did meet with these folks, I don't know, 6 months ago, whatever, it was a while back, and we are aware of the project. We're not aware of the pollinator garden, so this is new, and that's kind of why I'm here, to say that that was not part of the discussion. I think the pollinator garden is new, so I can't speak to whether we would be, what's going to happen with the maintenance, because this is new to me and new to all of us. So, but we are largely in favor of the project. It does align nicely with the boardwalk feasibility study, and a large part of the boardwalk, if it is redone, would require a large amount of stream bank stabilization. We recognize that. So it's a nice partnership, and we're excited about that. And we are supportive of the pollinator garden, but again, this was new to us.
It hasn't been hashed out.
That's kind of why.
Yeah, it's hashed out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Rich?
Could I just
please.
amplify something? So the discussions of the pollinator plot have sort of been on a bit of a parallel path with the stream restoration project. So so Clearwater has looked at the pollinator plot and also the southern woodcock meadow, and they've endorsed it as being consistent with the conservation easement. We've talked to the staff about it, Center Region Parks and Rec staff, but they haven't yet talked to the authority about it because they're going to do that at the next meeting. This is one of these projects that's evolving quickly, and there's a lot of people involved, and so unfortunately, there hasn't been a full discussion of the pollinator plot with the authority yet, so that's going to happen later. But I have my fingers crossed that the authority will think it's a good idea once the staff talks to them. But I don't want to put the cart in front of the horse here and get anybody in hot water here that's in the wrong spot at the wrong time. So the maintenance agreement that's, I think, was in the package, if you read that, and in the last couple of pages in there, it talks about the specific requirements for the maintenance. And it's a 20-year agreement. This is if we get state funds. So the landowner, which in this case is Center Region Parks and Rec, or you guys for your land, has to agree for 20 years to do several things. One of which is you cannot destroy or alter any of the improvements that are done during that 20-year time frame. The next thing is, and this really probably doesn't apply in either case, but if you were to sell the property, you would either have to reimburse the state for the cost of the work done or convey the balance of the time frame of that restriction to whoever buys the property. Again, I don't think either entity is going to sell it, but it's pretty clear in the agreement that's provided. The O&M arrangements that we have spelled out is an annual inspection of the site by the landowner, which would either be you or Center Region Parks and Rec. The second thing would be if there's debris removal, that would be done. If there's any significant debris removal that needed to happen. And the last thing is if there was any major damage or renovations that would be done, the owners would work with Trout Unlimited and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to get the work done. So the way Bob and I have approached this on other projects is if there was a big storm and some of the stuff got washed out or something, what we would do at that point is actually pursue another grant from somebody to go in and get it repaired. So our thought process is to minimize the cost to the landowner of any long-term maintenance. So I hope that clarifies that, but that's also what's written in the draft agreement that you guys can give to review. That would be the same thing for Center Region Parks and Rec. It's the same agreement.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Rich?
No, I understand the maintenance concern, but in the scope of the overall project, I think that's reasonable.
Great. Anything from staff?
I just had one comment.
Please.
The size of this is slightly smaller than Gordon D. Kissinger. So, and I don't remember, but I think that you ended up budgeting about $1,000 a year. And you probably want to do herbicide and maybe some planting, but obviously you could check what the current budget is. We did it. I know that TU put in about $500 a year for the first couple of years after we finished it, and I kept pushing Judy that you guys should take it over so we could, do some new things. But and so I think that you have at this point.
I'm glad you brought that up because I want to clarify my statement on the maintenance. It's not about budget, it's about manpower. That's my concern on the maintenance of the pollinator. Not budget, not that we can afford to budget to pay to maintain it. It's what kind of manpower do we have to maintain it.
Okay. Go ahead, Adam.
I was going to ask before you go back to sit down, Ford, or either one of you, but is this a situation where College Township involvement with the pollinator could be temporarily set aside and a decision on that made later versus support of the overall, the main project? Or is it part and parcel?
Well, okay, I would say, for us to get the grant for the stream work, we would definitely need your, your support and approval of that. If your decision is to not fund the pollinator plot, then there's a couple of things that are going on. First of all, the landowner, which is Center Region Parks and Rec, has to agree to the idea of the pollinator plot, which they have not formally done yet.
Correct.
So hopefully they will, but so let's say you decide not to pay for it, and let's say they think it's a good idea, then what I would try to do is to, in the next 3 weeks, see if somebody else would pay for it, okay? If nobody would pay for it, then we'd take it out of the grant application. It would make the grant slightly less competitive, but, if we can't find somebody to do it, we just have to take it out. And the same thing actually applies to the woodcock plot. This evening, another colleague, I think, is talking to Pheasants Forever to see if they'll pay for the woodcock plot. But both of those things are subject to the Center Region Parks and Rec Authority agreeing that, to put it there. Right?
You've answered my question, which is it's a holistic plan.
Yeah, so I mean,
For the
ideally,
Gotcha.
from my perspective, and I think probably Bob's and from Trout Unlimited and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services perspective, we'd like to see the whole thing accomplished. But, if a landowner doesn't want to do it, or there's other concerns, or we can't find the money, then we're going to have to take it out when we submit it. But again, I'm on the clock here to get it done by, by the 23rd of June. So.
Right, and I'll just say, from my perspective, what we're talking about tonight as College Township Council members, not necessarily as COG representatives, though we're always both, our letter this evening is regarding our pieces that are in orange on this map. And I feel perfectly comfortable sending this letter and offering the what do we call it, contribution for those. And then, as you said, it's still moving through the CRPR and authority process. And so if we have any concerns about pollinator maintenance, or I would actually argue I have fewer concerns as much as I have, here's an opportunity to make sure that we do these things well. Let's come up with a plan. Then that avenue's already on its way. Kathy's, got it in her sights. So if that helps frame just keeping our discussion to this specific point this evening. Rich?
No, the only thing, I think Mr. Stryker put it out, it makes it more competitive with it in, and it also makes it more compelling that the property owner's willing to put their money into it. And so from that, I definitely support the commitment.
I'd also point out with Carla,
Can you speak into the mic? Thanks.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
We're already doing maintenance on on the township property along Hauserville. And and you're not paying for it, and we don't talk about it.
Right.
And by the way, there's on a brush mattress, a log came loose in the wintertime. And within the next week, we'll probably have a machine in there to take the log and put it where it belongs. So that it's not as though, and that there'll be no charge to anybody for that. That'll be U.S. Fish and Wildlife that'll do it because it's the right thing to do. And it's-
Yeah, good example of kind of what we're looking at potentially down the road. Okay. Is there any further discussion, comments, questions? Without further ado,
The suggested motion for the pollinator funding, should we perhaps maybe add with the approval of the CRPA to that, just to clarify it, pending approval from them? Because they still have yet to approve
Sure.
the placement of the pollinator.
well, I mean, I think it's implied, but if
You
there's
need to-
nothing wrong with,
Yeah,
I mean, we wouldn't.
Well, it just says if they do not receive the DEP grant, it doesn't say anything about,
Well, if it's not allowed to go forward, we wouldn't be contributing to anything, but
what I heard was if the authority doesn't agree to do the maintenance, then it's gotta come out, and then our contribution towards it
wouldn't happen,
But more language never hurts.
Yeah, exactly. So if it makes you feel better about
Yeah,
adding
yeah.
it, then
I think we should.
that's fine.
Yeah, I think we should just add it.
Madam Chair, if it's all right, I'll move to authorize the
Please.
township manager to execute the landowner letter of commitment in support of Trout Unlimited's PA DCNR grant application. College Township acknowledges that should the grant be awarded, an additional landowner grantee agreement will be executed to ensure ongoing maintenance and upkeep of project elements.
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion?
Just a point of order, it's DEP, not DCR.
Yeah, that was a substantive, I misled you. I referred to it in the memo that most of you received as a
Good catch,
DCNR grant. It's technically a DEP.
Okay.
I did put
Correct.
it in the supplemental.
DEP
Okay.
grant, yes.
That,
So we need to amend.
motion to amend.
A motion to amend DCNR to DEP.
Second?
All those in favor of the motion to amend, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? All right, so now the amended motion, which hasn't actually been seconded.
Yeah, it did.
Susan
Susan.
Oh, Susan did second it, perfect, okay. Now the amended motion's on the floor. Any discussion? I guess I neglected to offer, offer my comments to this. I think this is a long time coming, and I'm really excited to see a group moving forward in this regard, given the importance of the marsh to our stormwater regionally, actually. It's a hugely important property, and I'm really excited for this opportunity that Trout Unlimited is spearheading. So thank you for that work. All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Do I have a motion for the second?
We'll do this one. Madam Chair, I move to commit to fund pollinator plot work in Millbrook Marsh in conjunction with Trout Unlimited's DEP grant, work in an amount not to exceed $7,500. Should Trout Unlimited not receive the DEP grant, no funding will be provided by College Township for this work. And to add that this is pending the CRPA approval to install the pollinator plot.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? All right, thank you. And thanks for your patience this evening. Motion carries. All right, that brings us to NB3, revisions to DCNR.
DCNR is correct.
Are we sure? DCNR grant estimate.
PRBD.
That's right.
PRD.
Yeah.
Too many acronyms.
DCNR.
Started out the night well.
We have the alphabet soup in terms of
Who
acronyms.
said there's no such thing as too much language?
All right, revisions to DCNR grant estimate and funding commitment. Mr. Bloom.
All right, so as I presented to Carla earlier, this is about as breaking of news as you could get. Staff, myself, and Amy had a discussion earlier this afternoon with our regional advisor from DCNR West Farringer in regards to our application for DCNR's C2P2 grant in support of Spring Creek Park basketball and tennis court rehabilitation project. Upon initial review of our grant application, DCNR did express that they felt that it was a compelling and competitive application. They certainly can't guarantee funding, but it was indicated that they feel that it scored well and would be moved forward for consideration for funding. However, they also noted that the cost estimate provided by staff may be significantly low based on the recent bid awards that DCNR is seeing across the state for comparable project elements. In that vein, and here's the sticker shock moment, is that staff was encouraged to essentially more than double the project cost estimate up to a number of approximately $350,000. As council will recall, when you talked about this earlier this year, one element of the grant submission package is a funding commitment letter from College Township to cover the required 50% grant match. Back when we initially submitted this grant, that funding commitment letter showed a number of $79,945 towards a $159,000, almost $160,000 project. At this point, looking at a potentially $350,000 project, the funding commitment from College Township would be a number not to exceed $175,000. Based on the sizable change of, one, the project cost estimate, and two, the funding commitment being asked of College Township, staff felt it imperative to bring that to your attention here this evening. We are on a very short turnaround for this. DCNR is having their grant review meetings next week. So what staff is requesting of council is that you consider supporting the revised cost estimate and providing DCNR with a funding commitment letter in the amount not to exceed $175,000. Attached with this memo was the draft funding commitment letter for your consideration this evening.
So, okay, so this is they're telling us adjust your grant application.
Yes.
Before we review the grants.
Right.
Got it.
Specifically, just so you're aware, in terms of the budget itself, there were two elements in particular that result in this substantive changes. One is they are seeing pretty astronomical numbers for fencing. We did go in and make adjustments, working with Amy based on some of the guidance provided by DCNR, and it significantly increases the fencing that was originally projected based on the numbers that we had. And then the other element was the surfacing. They're seeing pretty sizable increases in the cost for resurfacing, painting, and basically refinishing the courts as we have projected. And Amy, refresh my memories. We're looking at how many courts?
There's 2 basketball courts and 4 tennis courts total.
So with 6 potential courts, every one, it becomes a pretty significant change to the overall budget. So that's the bulk of where you see the significant increase. We also bumped up the numbers just marginally for some of the connectivity work, the pathway connections. After looking at that a little closer, we felt it might be a little low.
So does this include the path behind the tennis courts or no?
When you say behind it, where do you actually mean behind?
I mean that that speed connection that goes between the property, the homeowners and the tennis court.
No, this would really only be around the tennis courts and not connecting between the basketball. And
refinishing the existing paths.
Yeah, we had a pretty low number in there, to be honest. I think it was around $1,000.
Yeah, we really were just kind of making sure that we had ADA accessibility to the courts from the paths, and the paths really, there's a lot of routes in that, so we bumped that up to make sure that that's covered.
Okay. Dustin.
So we would commit to this. When is the timeline on this looking like?
That's what I want.
Sure. So what would happen is DCNR does their recommendations here this summer. We'll know of a grant award should we be awarded at the end of this year. So you'd be looking at budget next year as the place where you'd be looking to put the money into.
Yeah, and it all has to be paid at the same time within that year, right? Can't be stretched out.
As the project rolls out. Now, development period, go ahead, Adam.
Well, you reminded me
Right.
that we already have a budget number
Yeah.
for this year.
Yeah,
Right.
we currently have
For some of
40,000 in the budget this year, so it lessens the blow. But it is, again, readily acknowledged, this is a significant increase from what we initially asked of you.
Okay. That's the only question I had. I mean, I support this.
Question, Susan? I'm trying to think back to what the discussion we originally had and trying to get familiar with the Spring Creek plan. And you had talked about putting off work on the playground, correct?
Right.
In order to get this work done. And was there money budgeted for the playground, or we were changing the priorities and hadn't yet budgeted for the
Right.
changes?
It's actually the second. What we only put in this year was roughly about 40,000, thinking we would tackle something like the fitness equipment or
Gotcha.
something. The
Okay.
playground is definitely a higher, it's gonna need a design professional, and it's got bigger vision.
Okay, all right, okay. And it sounds like they think this is a competitive grant application, and there might be a good chance to get the funding that we thought we wouldn't have had.
Yeah, the fact that we've had multiple discussions with DCNR, again, they will, the caveat is that they can't commit, because again, it's how it
Understood.
competes statewide.
Understood.
But as our regional advisor, Wes feels like it's a strong competitive project that he, representing this area, would be recommending forward as a candidate for funding. We'll see how it shakes out with the rest of them.
Got it.
But moreover, they called us
Yes.
That's important.
I mean, I think that speaks volumes.
You're right, right.
They contacted us about what otherwise, but for the estimates that we use, is a very competitive
Okay.
Yeah,
application.
The way I read it, reading between the lines, is the only hangup they had about this application was the cost
The
estimate.
cost. Okay, well then I support that.
Rich?
Just a general note, since it seems feasible, even if, that we should put it in our capital improvement plan that's coming up quick. And then, are there any opportunities to tag some other pot of money for to help with the local match? I mean, there's been a couple of those over the years.
Are there any potential for in-kind services of any type?
Right now, the only in-kind that we include is the design engineer, so it's a relatively small number. Beyond that, it's limited.
Yeah, these are specialized
Okay.
services.
I know
on
we've
the coatings.
we've had,
Yeah.
and the answer could be no, but I pose it as a possibility. I still support it. And we should put it in the CIP.
Yeah, so just a couple comments. One, this is a great opportunity. This was, obviously, we underestimated the cost of this project, but this is a project on our list of projects to do. So to turn down money to get this project done would be short-sighted of us. So good work on the grant application. Little disappointed that it's more maintenance than, or like kind of refinishing than kind of adding some of the elements from the master plan. I think, I understand that it would further increase the cost. But I like just adding some of those pieces in there to really start seeing something. And then also, this delays even further the fitness equipment.
Most likely, yes. Until next year, at least.
Again, the fitness equipment delay, okay.
I'm just gonna I think when you see the Whitehall Road playground area, I think that's gonna influence some thinking. It's being installed right now, and so it's gonna be something.
Well, why would it influence?
Well, the playground as part of the master plan and everything like that.
Right, I'm not talking about the playground now.
No, I understand.
Okay,
Fitness
yeah.
But going back to another point, we had 40,000 for For, you're saying fitness equipment, not necessarily playground, okay.
Understand.
I'm talking about the smaller,
Oh, okay. I
yeah,
got
the
you.
smaller
I got you.
bit over on the other side of the tennis courts. Yeah.
Understand that the 40 that's in the budget for 2023 can still be utilized in any way the council directs. So if there was a keen interest in fitness equipment, we have $40,000 to do that. That would simply mean that the full amount of the match would need to be reflected in the 2024 budget. So this is not a zero sum necessarily.
I appreciate
Discussion.
I appreciate you throwing that out because, of course,
Sure. Yeah.
I would argue that the fitness equipment has been a very hot topic. It was spoken about quite a bit at our master plan for the Spring Creek Park open house. And it was very exciting to see it in this year's budget. So if at all we can move forward this year on that, then I would be in favor of that. But maybe that can be hashed out when you all are. I mean, if it was hashed out now, it would be nice because then staff would know whether or not they should move forward on the fitness equipment.
Right, because I guess the question is, do you give me direction to go ahead and do that? And as Adam said, we re-budget next year, or do we want to carry forward the 40,000 that we have this year and then add a smaller amount to it next year?
Yeah.
I mean,
The 40,000 is just general to Spring Creek Park?
well,
It was
I
budgeted.
can't remember.
it
I
was
just can't
budgeted,
remember,
but
yeah.
it had a line
Placeholder.
item, I think, as fitness equipment
Yeah,
or.
okay, that's what I wanted to
It
know.
wasn't
line.
playground, but I think it actually
Yeah.
did say fitness equipment,
Right,
if I'm not mistaken.
I got you.
Yeah, I mean, the reason staff brought that up is just to lessen the financial blow, but also there's that other argument that you're making, Carla, of by 40,000 and then budgeting an additional 175,000 just as a placeholder number, you know, the return on investment might be better in terms of having new equipment plus the maintenance element that this project really entails.
Right.
So it's a question of priority.
Look, it's six, from my perspective, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. At some point, there's gonna be new fitness equipment.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to pay for that. We're gonna have to pay for our share of any grant that we receive. Pay me now, pay me later. We happen to be in a fortunate circumstance where we could do both right now if we needed to. That said, I don't think that we need to pinch the penny if that is a concern of council. And it sounds to me, at least with one member of council, there's a preference to move forward with, as we have budgeted for 2023, the fitness equipment.
I don't have a concern with pinching the penny because we've committed to the master plan, right? We have that master plan. It's not, I'll say this and I'll be done, it's not like Millbrook Marsh where we don't have a master plan and we're trying to commit funds. We have a master plan, we said we would commit to this, we've already done it, and I'm good with that. I'm golden with that.
Right, if we're gonna be ready to implement
Yeah, sure.
this year. If not, again, it's
Right.
6 of one, half dozen of the other.
If I may, you see any reason at this point that the fitness equipment would be impossible to execute on this year?
No, I've already reached out to the equipment rep, and, you know, purchasing it off of CoStars is easy enough. Installation is the only thing that is a stumbling block, because I think in the past, our crews have prepped the site, and the equipment company has installed it, I believe. I just have to make sure that I can fit that in with the crew that I have, because, you know, we're already committed on many things at this point, so I gotta meet with Ed and
Sure.
schedule. Bottom line, from what I understand, is if we cannot do it, we're basically paying the full amount. I could, you know, to have somebody else prep the site and install the equipment.
Gotcha.
So that's the difference.
Okay.
Yeah, that's going to the playground. That's a similar scenario that's going on. There's separate contracts for the various elements. Parks and Rec bought the equipment, and then they have an installer, and the site contractor did the prepping.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it can ramp up.
We
got
can
resident
do it.
expert.
We can install this equipment. We just need to make sure it's scheduled in
Probably.
when it's probably, okay. All right, well, any further comments, or do we feel comfortable, I'll just state it out loud, feel comfortable moving forward as possible with the CIP plan, the budgeted plan with the fitness equipment at Spring Creek Park for this year, and then also sending this commitment letter for the court surfaces. Everybody feel comfortable with that? Great. Do you have direction?
I do, yeah, as long as you're collectively comfortable with just, again, because it was such a substantive change, we wanted to get it back in front of you just to confirm you were still comfortable with it.
Good process. Yeah. Adam?
Do we need a motion?
Probably doesn't hurt, just since we're asking to have you sign
Okay.
off on a funding commitment letter.
Great.
And it would be a motion to the effect of move to authorize up to $175,000 matching grants for the DCNR project.
I move.
So
I
moved.
move. So moved. So moved.
It's been moved
And seconded?
and seconded by Rich. All right, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries.
Never.
Yeah, thanks, those,
Appreciate
Never
it.
try to
it was
restate.
good, though
Just to say
difficult
so
is.
moved.
Yeah,
You know what
very
I'm gonna
timely.
do? In order to get better at Robert's Rules of Order, I'm gonna have my family do them at home from now on.
Good luck
That's
with
right,
it.
that's how
Talk to
you'll
each other
conduct
around.
all family
Point of
business.
order.
Well, point of order, we haven't adjourned yet.
Yeah, be careful of that one.
I mean, they're all packing up. I haven't written it down yet.
Staff informatives. Anything for
Nothing to report.
council staff, other matters?
You touched on the charrettes, and that was something I was going to bring up, so appreciate that. That came as naturally, organically as part of the discussion.
Organic.
The assistant manager report?
I was going to say.
Is that it?
is
That was
there a
it. That was
report?
That's all you get.
That's all we got. Okay, I'll accept that.
Awesome. Okay. I will just say that it's, you know how I all feel about you. It's pretty great. And I will take this opportunity to pass the gavel to the new College Township Council Chair, Dustin Best. I wish you the best.
Okay, thank you.
It is bittersweet to have my last council meeting, but I also, it makes it so much easier doing it with the group of, handing, whatever little bit I've been able to kind of muster control about handing it to the good people that are the College Township staff and the rest of my council colleagues. So go get them. I'll let you adjourn.
Your last meeting? No?
No, go ahead.
All right, we'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, I'll second, adjourned.
I was gonna say, I'm not approved. I'm not.